single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
정말로 매우 좋다고 했습니다.
트럼프 미국 대통령은 러시아와 우크라이나가 이번 주 휴전 합의에 이르기를 희망한다며 양국은 이후 미국과 큰 사업을 시작해 큰 부를 쌓게 될 것입니다. 조금 전 트럼프 대통령이 한국의 상호관세 25%를 부과하겠다고 밝혔습니다. 또 상호관세 발표에서 한국 수입차, 미국에서 판매되는 한국 자동차의 80%.
World-leading technology giants are announcing the formation of Stargate. So put your name down in your books.
대통령은 시기에 맞춰 이용자 정보를 적절하게 수집하는 미국이 인도주의에 나서
우리보다 호구와 일본의 나라들도
그래픽 메모리를 납품하고 있는데 여기에 최고라고 납품합니다. 이는 지난 1월 CES
여러분 환영합니다. 저는 머니투데이 대표 강호병입니다. 이른 아침부터 키플랫폼을 찾아주셔서 고맙습니다. 지금 2025 키플랫폼을 시작하겠습니다. 지금 세계가 요동치고 있습니다. 트럼프 대통령 2기의 매운맛 행보에 전 세계가 놀라는 중입니다. 이달 초 보편 관세 발표부터 유예, 그 다음에 품목별 관세 예고와 중국에 대한 극한의 보복 관세가 이어지면서 글로벌 금융시장이 연일 출렁이고 있습니다. 불확실성의 극대화의 시대라고 할 만합니다. 그러나 키플랫폼은 이를 조금 다르게 바라보고자 합니다. 2016년 트럼프 정부 출범 때부터 그의 생각과 행보를 정확하게 예측해 왔다고 자부하는 우리는 이를 구조화된 불확실성이라고 부르겠습니다. 물론 저희가 장명한 이름은 아닙니다. 일기 시절 트럼프 대통령의 멘토셨던 에드윈 퓰러 헤리티지 재단 창업자님과 그 동료들이 귀띔해준 트럼프 대통령에 대한 해석법입니다. 깊이 숨기고 있지만 분명한 전략 목표, 그리고 이를 달성하기 위한 전통적인 사고를 커다란 진폭으로 흔들어대지만 패턴은 명확하게 구조화된 트럼프 특유의 실행이라는 의미입니다. 현재 가장 가시적인 전략 목표는 중국 포위 체계 구축입니다. 이를 위해서는 나토를 중시하는 외교 전통도 아마 바꿀 태세입니다. 나토는 냉전 시대 옛 소련의 봉쇄를 위해서 결성되었습니다. 소련과의 체제 전쟁을 이기기 위해서 중국까지 품에 안았습니다. 그 결과가 중국 경제의 급성장입니다. 미국과 협력 체계를 구축한 중국은 2001년 12월 WTO 가입으로 성장을 가속하였습니다. 가격 경쟁력 있는 노동시장 때문에 중국은 금방 세계의 공장이 되었습니다. 이는 높은 성장률로, 그리고 폭발적인 GDP 성장으로, 그리고 요소 투자와 내수 시장 확대로 이어지며 어느덧 중국은 G2의 위치에 서게 되었습니다. 지금 미국이라는 그 함은 선회 중입니다. 이제 패권을 위협하는 중국을 견제하고 봉쇄하기 위해서 러시아까지 품는 새로운 접근법을 구상하고 있습니다. 그로 인해 2차 대전 후에 전통 질서의 균열이 시작됐습니다. 어떤 패권 국가도 강력한 도전자의 위협을 방관하지 않는다는 것은 역사의 상식입니다. 트럼프 1기에서 시작된 중국 봉쇄 전략은 바이든 정부 때도 변하지 않았으며 트럼프 2기 때는 더욱 매섭게 나타나는 중입니다. 그 방법 중에 하나가 관세 전쟁이라고 생각합니다. 공세는 유화책과 번갈아가며 반복될 것으로 예상합니다. 이로 인해 과거 질서는 더욱 와해되고 또 다른 균형점을 찾기 위한 동맹의 이합 집산이 반복될 것입니다. 레거시에 생긴 큰 균열입니다. 이제 과거 패턴에 기댄 분석이 아닌 모든 것을 원점에 놓고 아주 유연하게 생각하는 자세가 절실합니다. 그런데 레거시의 균열은 국가 패권 경쟁에서만 발견되는 것이 아닙니다. 기술 패권 경쟁에서도 나타납니다. 지금 우리가 가장 주목해야 하는 기술 패권 경쟁은 바로 AI 패러다임 경쟁입니다. AI는 인류가 난 생각과 행동의 패턴 데이터를 에너지로 성장하는 바, 생산성을 키우는 순기능을 극대화하려면 목적에 부합하는 표준, 적절한 규범이 필요합니다. 이러한 글로벌 표준과 규범 제정을 위한 글로벌 대화의 장 속에 최대한 자국 이익을 반영하고자 노력하는 AI 패러다임 경쟁 역시 치열하게 진행 중입니다. 글로벌 질서의 중간자인 대한민국은 AI 패러다임 경쟁에서도 같은 역할을 수행할 수 있고 또 수행해야 된다고 생각을 합니다. 이제 발걸음을 뗀 AI 기술 표준 구축을 위해서 경쟁에서 쏠림을 피하고 아주 유연하고 민첩하게 협력하는 자세가 필요합니다. 올해로 13회째를 맞이한 키플랫폼은 이 두 가지 화두를 동시에 잡고 해법을 찾는 데 집중하고자 합니다. 이를 위해 수많은 전문가를 발로 뛰어 만났습니다. 이제 2025 키플랫폼에 영감을 주셨던 최고의 전문가분들을 바로 이 무대로 모셔서 여러분께 생생한 인사이트를 전달하고자 합니다. 그럼 이만 키플랫폼 메인 앵커에게 마이크를 넘기고 저는 퇴장하겠습니다. 여러분 박수 부탁합니다. 2025 키플랫폼 메인 앵커 앤드류 브로벨입니다.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Robel, and I am the Chief Reinvention Officer and founder of Emerging Europe, a leading European think tank. I've had the pleasure to join the K.E.Y platform over the past 6 years, and it's a genuine privilege to be with you once again today. I sense that people in Korea are paying closer attention to global affairs and economic developments than perhaps ever before. Understandably so. given the tariff pressures that followed President Trump's re-election. It's only natural to be concerned when key exports such as semiconductors, automobiles, and steel, which form the backbone of Korea's economy, are subject to such scrutiny. A similar atmosphere can be felt across Europe. As many of you will know, the United States and Europe, as NATO allies, share long-standing commitments and economic ties. Yet, recent years have shown and have seen a growing divergence in views and approaches on a number of fronts. The differing responses to the two major wars currently unfolding are a case in point. Alongside this geopolitical turbulence, we are also contending with another transformational force, artificial intelligence. AI is swiftly becoming embedded in our daily lives, and myself, I now rely on it throughout my working day. As AI continues to reshape our world, we must ensure that it is deployed with foresight and purpose, not just as a tool, but as a part of the solution to the challenges it introduces. Once again, the United States and China are leading the charge, extending their global rivalry into this critical frontier. Losing pace in AI could well mean ceding influence in the broader global economy. Europe has taken this seriously, advancing the AI Act as a framework to guide responsible innovation. As a reinventionist myself, I must say that in many ways, this moment invites us to reflect and recalibrate, to consider how we might not only adapt, but quietly reinvent the ways we think, work, and lead. Whether this is your first time attending or you've been with the K.E.Y platform over the years, each edition offers something very meaningful. Personally, I always look forward to coming to Seoul and attending the conference. Over the past decade, the K.E.Y platform has consistently provided thought-provoking perspectives on the most pressing global challenges, from digital transformation to future-proof business strategies. I believe the decision to focus this year on the theme of legacy cracking and to explore the Frontline of Omnimodus as a way forward is both very timely and well judged. I very much hope that you will enjoy the next 2 days, a real celebration of ideas and discovery brought to life by the K.E.Y platform. This opening session brings together leading thinkers from the Heritage Foundation and Washington's policy circles, who are long-time collaborators of the K.E.Y platform, to offer their views on the Trump era and how we might best navigate it. We'll also hear from global experts on AI, policy and regulation, who will offer valuable insights into the strategic opportunities this new era presents to Korea. Whether you're a policymaker, business leader, scholar, or student, I am quite confident that what you will hear today will not only inform you, but also inspire you. And with that, let us begin the plenary session of the K.E.Y Platform 2025. Our opening conversation will feature global voices in politics and diplomacy. Anthony Kim, Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, will moderate the session. But before we begin, we have the honor of hearing a congratulatory address from Dr. Edwin Füllner, the founder of Heritage Foundation. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ed Füllner. I'm the founder and former president of the Heritage Foundation here in Washington, D.C. And this morning it's my very great pleasure to welcome all of you to the Monytoday conference, 13th annual conference, which I've been honored to be a part of on so many prior occasions. I want to say particular greetings and thank you to Chairman Hong, President Kang, and my good friend Drake Huang and all of the distinguished guests who are there, many of whom I have met at previous gatherings. It's my pleasure today to talk about your key platform as we go forward at this critical time in our joint efforts together between the Republic of Korea and particularly the United States of America. And I'm so glad today that while I'm not able to be with you, that my two colleagues from the Heritage Foundation, Anthony Kim, the longtime editor of our annual Index of Economic Freedom, and Dr. Niall Gardner, the head of the Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom at the Heritage Foundation, are able to be there and to be active participants in this year's conference. For a host of reasons that you're all aware of, we know that we are now at a new critical crossroads. Both of our countries have undergone some very significant changes in just the last few months. However, we now have to work even more vigorously together, jointly, to promote expanded opportunities to promote freedom, opportunity, prosperity, and civil society in both of our countries. Ours is a strategic initiative, a strategic alliance that has been faces challenging geopolitical and economic landscape today, particularly, whether we look at the major impact of a growing and, I'm afraid to say, threatening China, a immediate challenge for the Republic of Korea, just north of where we are today, and throughout the area and throughout the world. Yes, we have issues that must be discussed and debated, and we must work toward common shared solutions. And these days, on both sides, despite too much noise and too many distractions, it seems to me that we have to preserve and expand our critical alliance even more intensely than in years past. By institutionalizing some of these relationships, it seems to me that conferences like this one from Money Today mean people-to-people cooperation. It means capital intensity and capital flows back and forth, and expanding opportunities, expanding trades, not viewing tariffs as limitation, but as new opportunities to work together more effectively to find ways to help both of our countries. People to people and cutting business edge cooperation is absolutely critical between our two nations. Stronger than skeptics may see, a lot of what we're going to be facing and challenged by today are special bilateral relationship. And this bilateral relationship, I think, can actually go to new heights under Trump 2.0. You're going to have a political change, as we all know, very soon. We have had one, and we're looking at things in a very different way now from the U.S. perspective. We're looking at how to deepen and truly move our relationships, particularly with close friends, like the people of the ROK, so much closer than they ever have been before. And that's what Trump 2.0, I think, gives us the opportunity to do. We have to experience new ways of working together in practical approaches and facing all the challenging issues together. Again, it's my very great regret I'm not able to be with you. I look forward to working with you in the months and years ahead, and look forward to hearing from my colleagues all of the accomplishments and achievements that will happen as you all get together with different perspectives to work together to see if we can find more ways toward common solutions. Be well, and onward.
Okay. Almost.
Thank you, Andrew Robel, for a great start, and thank you, Mr. Kong, for your warm welcome. 네, 내빈 신사숙녀 여러분, 오늘 자리를 함께 해주셔서 대단히 감사합니다. 이 키플랫폼 행사에 저도 참여한 지가 이제 제 5손가락 정도가 되는 것 같습니다. 그거보다 더 되나요? 그럼 2손을 써야 되는 상황인지도 모르겠는데 상당히 제가 이 행사에 올 때마다 느끼는 것은 이 키플랫폼이 그야말로 참 중요한 공간이고 장소고 아이디어 인큐베이터라는 생각이 듭니다. 그 해마다 우리가 위기가 없을 수는 없겠죠. 국내 위기가 있고 세계 위기가 있고 또 국내 위기 안에는 정치 위기가 있을 거고 또 경제 위기가 있을 거고 근데 위기와 기회는 여러분들이 말씀하셨듯이 동전의 양면이고 우리가 어떻게 보느냐 어떻게 활용하느냐 그런 관점인 것 같습니다. 그래서 다시 한번 이 좋은 행사를 마련해 주신 우리 머니투데이 관계자 여러분들 특히나 이 키플랫폼이라는 정말 이 좋은 플랫폼을 항상 고민하고 또 만들어내시는 우리 황종덕 총괄 이 책임자 매니저님과 정말 그 팀들께 다시 한번 감사드리며 저희가 가지고 있는 이 한 50분 가량의 시간은 과연 지금 어떻게 상황들이 벌어지는지에 대해서 특별히 워싱턴의 관점에서 여러분과 함께 한번 대화를 나눠보고 우리가 여기에 무슨 렉처를 하기 위해서 강의를 하러 온 것은 절대로 아닙니다. 그래서 여러분과 함께 생각을 공유할 수 있는 그런 자리가 됐으면 좋겠습니다. 그러면 더 이상 시간 낭비를 하지 않고 이제 곧 시작을 하겠습니다. Thank you again. I want to warmly welcome my good friend in Washington, Piero Torci. Great to see you, Piero.
Great to see you and good morning.
Can you hear us well?
I can.
Great, great. Thank you for your time. We are 13-hour difference, but really appreciate your time, your evening hours especially.
Of course.
We look forward to hearing your comments. You will be the second speaker. So to kick off our session, this very first session, let's begin with Washington. So when we travel, when you go to either Japan or anywhere in Europe or South America or Africa, sometimes you have to wonder how cold that city I'm going to is, how windy, depending on your curiosity. So what I'm trying to say is that I think it's very important for us to understand the temperature of Washington, especially these days. Obviously, under President Trump, perhaps we can say it's very hot and sometimes very cold, up and down. So with that in mind, I'd like to invite Dr. Niall Gardner from the Heritage Foundation, longtime friend and colleague. Dr. Gardner, from your perspective, you've been in Washington more than 20 years. How do you see today's Washington in terms of political temperature, especially foreign policy-wise, under 2.0 of Trump?
Well, thank you very much, Anthony, for hosting us here today. It's a real pleasure to be here in Seoul. And I have to say that in Washington, D.C. right now, it's a very exciting moment, really. This is a time of tremendous change. We're seeing another political revolution unfolding before our eyes at the very heart of the free world. And I do think that President Trump really is a very revolutionary figure. He's determined to fundamentally shake up the world order in many respects. And I think it's a time of renewal for American leadership on the international stage. And I think that President Trump really wants to send a clear message that America is 100% back at the helm of the free world. And I've had an opportunity to meet with Donald Trump on a number of occasions during his first presidency. And he is not an isolationist president, far from it. I think he believes that the United States really has to be driving the defense of the free world. The United States really has to be fundamentally, I think, reshaping the world in the defense of freedom and liberty. And so this idea that President Trump ignores American alliances, that he doesn't care about American leadership in the world, I think that's a very false narrative. I do believe that President Trump, he's a very, very strong and determined figure. He greatly values, of course, US alliances. That includes the NATO alliance, but also he places tremendous importance upon the partnerships with key alliances in Asia as well. And the US-Korean alliance, I think, is at the very heart of President Trump's strategic outlook for the entire Asia-Pacific, Indo-Pacific region. And so this is an exciting time, I think, for our South Korean friends and allies. And I think this is a time of tremendous opportunity, actually. But it's going to be a roller coaster ride in the next 4 years. Every day brings exciting new developments. And I think that President Trump is somebody who has a very clear vision for American leadership on the world stage, and that, of course, includes the vital partnership and alliance with our friends and allies here in South Korea.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner, for that big picture assessment. In our opening video, I saw the line, basically something like a time of change is a time of opportunity. I think you kind of alluded to that point. I want to provide one disclaimer. Obviously, we are here to talk about Washington, Trump 2.0, but we from the Heritage Foundation and my good friend Eric Hans from Center for International and Private Enterprise, we are not a political organization. We are a private, independent think tank. So we are not here to represent any political party or any administration, in this case, Trump administration. This is how we see. So we are not here to defend or glorify. We want to share our candid assessment from a perspective of, let's say, US-Korea alliance. That is the core. So for our audience, I just want to remind that. I think your big picture assessment, Dr. Gardner, that's one view, right? I mean, obviously, just playing devil's advocate here, I mean, obviously, my last name is Kim, so I have a special relationship with Korea, right? So in Korea, I really detect anxiety, nervousness, curiosity when it comes down to Trump. And a lot of people in Korea, obviously, they appreciate, they want to continue this great relationship between Washington, Seoul, United States, and South Korea. But we do recognize this anxiety, nervousness, and curiosity. But as you said, Niall, it can be potentially huge opportunity, and that's one perspective I share, which gives me a good segue to our second speaker, Mr. Piero Torci. Piero, I think you're in a unique setting because in Washington, we have an executive branch and Congress. These two institutions are very important when it comes down to policy making. What could you tell us in terms of kind of congressional mood today, particularly, let's be more specific, when it comes down to foreign policy, among many big elephants, China is a big one, and you've been spending a lot of time and energy on China issue. And as we know, China issue in Washington is not like a one-party issue. I think now we can say this is a very much bipartisan issue in Washington when it comes down to how to deal with China. What could you share with us, especially our audience here in Seoul for MoneyToday's key platform, in terms of what you view the congressional mood and China policy issues?
Well, thank you, Anthony. Yes, I'm happy to share that. And I just want to say that these are my personal views that I'm speaking about. But I think what's important, we look at Trump 1.0, and what was really important about that was, I think, a transition from that idea of engagement with China, that we could bring China into the existing international rules-based order, and that they would be a good player. So, for example, the World Trade Organization. And if you look at my organization, the Congressional Executive Commission on China, it grew out of that period of engagement. And in part, we track China's human rights record, we keep a political prisoner database. It was in response to a few solitary voices back in the 1990s that were saying, wait a second, China is a communist country. The Chinese Communist Party is in control, and it is the idea that you can bring them into a rules-based international order is a mistaken one. Those few voices included Congressman Chris Smith, who is the co-chairman of the Congressional Executive Commission in China, who appointed me, and also on the Democratic side, he's a Republican, Nancy Pelosi. And there were a few others, Frank Wolf, Republican, David Bonnier, Democrat, that are no longer in Congress, but those are two consistent voices. And it was in part because of their steadfastness in calling attention to that issue that the Congressional Executive Commission on China was founded. Trump 1.0, there was a shift from what had been, I think, a shared policy of engagement that had dominated Washington towards that, what I would call the Smith-Pelosi realist view as to China's intentions. I think since that time, and you've seen now both Democrats and Republicans, not completely, but for the most part, the consensus view sees China not simply as a strategic rival or a rival with regards to trade, but a systemic one. In other words, they do seek to become the hegemon. And I would say that if we can be, one thing to be grateful to Xi Jinping for is the fact that with him the mask is off. He took the mask off. There should be no confusion about the intentions of the Chinese Communist Party, both regionally and particularly with regards to Taiwan, the Philippines, and its neighbors that acts very aggressively for. And I would add also South Korea, and I know you're on a verge of making a decision as to who will be the next president. But I think it is a challenge, but not just regionally too. It does seek to be the hegemon, to rule all under heaven, Tian Sha. So I think right now the mood in Washington is one of awareness. We also see it on the state level too. I just had some outreach from this state legislature that asked if I could talk to them about the China and the CCP, because we see activities at the local level as well. We know in Korea too, and we see this transnational repression. Even I received an email from the Shenyun people. They're telling me how they're having trouble securing a venue to have their performances in Korea, and they attribute that to pressure from the Chinese. We saw in the United States these Chinese police stations, and all over in many countries, including in Seoul as well. So we really see, even at the subnational level, we see the long arm of influence of the CCP. So this is something I think that is a worldwide phenomenon. It is the, I guess, the existential issue of our time. And I think the sense that we have amid all this uncertainty is that we're heading towards an inflection point at some point in the near future.
Indeed, Piero, inflection point. Amazing, Piero. Really sharp observation. I really like the way you present, in a way, Xi Jinping, by kind of, taking off his mask. He gave us real opportunity to understand the danger of not China, not Chinese people. We're talking about very specific entity here, CCP. So that's the core issue, and that's why in Washington, today's perspective on China is very different from 2000 when China has became the member of WTO. So that, I think, very important assessment we must share with our partners and allies, not only in Korea, but also around the world. And also your point on not only at the Washington, D.C. level, but the state level. So this is not just Washington is acting up. This is also many governors, many state level policymakers. I think they do aware now, they do realize China is not necessarily market opportunity only. We really need to be a bit more candid. We need to really see things through. On that note, now I want to invite my longtime good friend, Eric Hunt. Eric is, in a way, a unique, let's say, stakeholder and player in Washington because you interact a lot more than either Niall or me or Piero Torci when it comes down to private sector engagement. You deal with the companies and all that. So I want to ask you the same question. From your perspective, the mood in Washington, plus you go around the world, we talk about things together sometimes, the danger of China's malign influence around the world.
Yeah.
Let's combine your assessment on Washington temperature and the China issue together.
So,
thank you, Piero.
Yeah, and thank you, and Piero, thank you to Congress for funding much of our work at the Center for National Private Enterprise and investigating a lot of that malign influence. Again, these are my personal views, so they don't represent my organization or any parent organizations. Let me just say that to those of you in the room that don't yet realize, we're at war. And it's a war that is real. It's an economic war right now. And hopefully, Piero, to your point about the inflection point, it doesn't turn into a hot war. But this is very much a war. It's a war of standards. It's a war of economic models. It is a war that we need, as the United States, allies to be fully committed into creating space to preserve and promote what we created in the post-1990 world era. That is prosperity, growth, and innovation. And so balancing that economic freedom that you talk about, Anthony, in your Economic Freedom Index, with a new realization that there is a different economic security framework out there. So this is really where there's an opportunity within this chaos and within this movement. Let me just quickly go around the world. Anthony mentioned I do travel quite a bit. I see this perspective, this authoritarian capitalist model, this corrosive capital that has really infected our capital systems around the world. If we look in Africa, we see Russian mercenaries, we see Chinese buying up entire countries, elites, and we see the monopolization and the subjugation of a neo-colonial empire. In Europe, we see active measures by the Russian government to assassinate and undermine NATO members. In Ukraine, we have an actual war, the largest since World War II, with hundreds of thousands of people wounded and killed. Russia, Ukraine, Russia, China, Iran are all working together on each of these areas. We shift then to Asia, and in Asia, we see flights and incursions into Taiwanese airspace on a daily basis. We see in the South Philippine Sea incursions and military Coast Guard maneuvers being performed. We see the creation of islands, the pre-deployment of military infrastructure. We see the attempt to infiltrate the telecommunication systems of the Philippines. And more we see incursions and gray zone maneuvers here in the North Pacific, in Japan and in Korea. And all of this is a nexus and a view on an economic world, like to Paul's point, Pierre's point, the middle income or middle kingdom power, where all things come back to the center. And that is a zero-sum economic model. It's antithetical. As an American, I don't believe in a zero-sum economic model. I believe in a positive-sum economic model. I believe that in our work with the Korean government and the Korean people, we create greater prosperity together than we would have otherwise had alone. And that is a fundamental market belief. And we see this time and time again, where our adversaries, where the Chinese, where the Russians, where the Iranians, infect entire countries, entire societies with this corrosive capital, undermining market and democratic institutions so that American companies, Korean companies, Japanese companies, European companies are put at a competitive disadvantage in this unvirtuous cycle that leads down to corruption and zero-sum outcomes, a place that we don't want to be.
Thank you, Eric. I'm going to ask you one more question related to that, and then for our audience awareness, we're going to shift our gear because we are doing this wonderful key platform Moni투데이 conference here in Seoul. We're going to zoom in terms of Korea-US partnership alliance under 2.0. What kind of potential opportunities are ahead of us? So before I get into that conversation, Eric, the geoeconomic setting you are touching upon here, China issue and all that. I want to bring another country, not another country, the country you mentioned, back to our conversation, Russia. Especially in the context of Korea. Obviously, I'm not talking about Ukraine-Russia war, a pure geoeconomic perspective. I mean, South Korea cannot ignore the presence of Russia. How do you assess from geoeconomic perspective, and let's say economic perspective, let's put aside conflicts and geopolitical issue, let's say geoeconomic issue.
Yeah, it is a real economic issue, and I would be paying attention if I were based in Seoul, in a Seoul think tank. I would be paying very close attention to what deals have been done economically between the Russians and the North Koreans. There has been a significant tech transfer in rocketry and ballistic missiles. There has been significant technological transfer and machine building transfer between the Russians and the North Koreans. And this is real. And this is impacting the security situation here in South Korea. And it cannot be ignored. And you cannot disentangle or unscramble the egg of economic and security issues anymore.
Exactly.
They are one and the same. And that is why we're shifting from this neoliberal, laissez-faire type of economic model to something that gets that balance right. And at the end of the day, Anthony, it's my belief that democratic market countries have the opportunity, because we debate each other and because we have so many disagreements and because it's covered widely by the news, that at the end of the day, we'll come up with the right policy solutions and we'll be able to move forward together and outcompete and win against authoritarian adversaries.
I mean, this, let's say Korea chessboard or Korea Peninsula chessboard is not easy one, right? Korea, Japan, China, and Russia. So this is not really one-dimensional math equation. We gotta be really expand our solution box here. So I think as we are going through this, a change of time and also change of many things, I think we should keep in mind that this geo-economic setting is probably more important than ever, and we cannot really dismiss the immediate geostrategic, geoeconomic, geopolitical factors relevant to South Korea. In that context, I'm coming back to Niall and Piero. Niall, this is not your first visit to Korea, obviously, right? You've been coming to Korea for some time, for years. When you see U.S., South Korea, U.S. partnership, let's put it that way. We celebrated the 75th alliance anniversary not too long ago. We are getting into a new milestones as we go. 70th anniversary, and we're soon going to hit 75. How do you see Korea's opportunity under 2.0? I mean, in a way, let me ask you this way. President Trump has been dealing with the EU as an entity. He has been dealing with China. He has been, let's say, dealing with Korea. And as Piero and Niall know, this week is very important for South Korea because the important delegation, economic delegation, is visiting Washington, D.C. to negotiate tariffs and other matters. So it's a very important kind of a week for a lot of South Korean policymakers and private sector companies here because of uncertainty related to tariffs situation. What can you share with us now? How do you see? I mean, is the Korea case a bit different? I mean, what kind of assessment you have?
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Those are great questions, and I'm glad you brought up the European Union because I think President Trump has made it very clear that he views the EU actually, in some respects, as not just a competitor, but also as an adversary, in fact. And Trump, I think, is pro-Europe, anti-European Union. And that's his approach, actually. He believes in the transatlantic alliance, but he does not like the supranationalism, the big government socialist style approach of the EU. And he views the EU as an increasingly anti-American actor, but he supports nation states, close US allies in Europe. And on the Korean issue, I think that President Trump, the Trump administration views South Korea very differently to the European Union. It's like night and day. And I'm reminded of President Trump's excellent speech actually to the Korean National Assembly November 2017, I think, where he spoke about the strength and power of the US-Korean alliance that was forged through America standing with the Korean people against communism, against totalitarianism. And so there's a joint history there that is really powerful. And I expect that in the second Trump administration, you're going to see a continuation of that and a further strengthening. And I know there's a lot of discussion about the US military commitment to South Korea. I believe that the US is 100% fully committed to the defense of South Korea. You are going to see the continuation of the US military presence here in South Korea. That's not going to change at all. There's going to be, in fact, I think, a further strengthening of the defense and national security partnership between Seoul and Washington. I think also the Trump administration is going to be looking at enhancing trade and investment. There's already, I think, $200 billion a year of trade and investment between the US and Korea. And that economic partnership is going to be further strengthened. Also, I think that one idea that is going to gain ground in Washington, in the White House, is the idea potentially of bringing South Korea into the G7, making it a G8 with South Korea as an additional member. I know this is an important proposal from the Heritage Foundation. In fact, you've written about this, Anthony. And I think that's a tremendous idea, because South Korea plays such a crucially important role here in the Asia-Pacific region. And it's in America's interest, I think, to bring South Korea on board as an additional member of the G7. I think it would be a fantastic move, and it sends a very clear signal about not only the strength of the US-South Korean alliance, but also it sends a signal as well to China. And there's no doubt about it, of course, communist China is now the #1 adversary for the United States on the world stage. And we see in Russia the Putin regime, which is in many respects increasingly the puppet regime of Beijing. Vladimir Putin is Beijing's little helper, basically. And I think that by strengthening the partnership with South Korea, that sends a very clear signal as well to Beijing that the United States is firmly committed to the defense of our allies and our partners here in the Asia-Pacific region. And Korea is such a critically important partner. Also, I should add as well that there's a very important energy security dimension as well to the partnership, and also increasing cooperation between Seoul and Washington with regard to artificial intelligence. So on so many areas, I think the next 4 years are going to be a period of significant strengthening of the alliance with South Korea. And I do believe that Donald Trump believes that South Korea is an absolutely vital and crucial ally. And so it's the Asia-Pacific equivalent of the US-UK special relationship.
I think that really hits the point in a way. Before I go to Piero, just quickly, if you look at whom President Trump has been meeting in terms of world leaders, I think the pattern is really amazing once again. I mean, not too long ago, he had a fantastic meeting with the Italian Prime Minister. And he had a good meeting with the UK Prime Minister. He will visit Poland in due course. Obviously, after some time, there's an important election in Poland in May. But if you look at, as you alluded, now, he may not be, really big fan of EU. In fact, he doesn't like that kind of bureaucratic organization, but he loves engaging with the European countries and leaders and people, and he will visit Europe again and again for sure. So I'm really glad that you brought up that differentiation. Perhaps we can add, he may see, NATO, EU, two completely different entities. Can you add one more quick stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, President Trump is due to travel to The Hague for the NATO summit.
Which will be June.
Yes, I think it's June 23rd, 24th in the Netherlands. And President Trump, I believe, really wants to strengthen the NATO alliance. He wants to make NATO great again. And that depends upon a commitment upon all of our NATO allies to increase defense spending. We're already seeing the Trump effect in Europe. Germany has announced a dramatic increase in its defense spending commitments. And we're going to see the same, I think, across Europe. I think the pressure that the Trump presidency is placing upon our European allies to be really serious about the defense of Europe, to stand up to the Russian bear. And let's be under no illusions here. The threat that Vladimir Putin's regime, his terrorist regime, poses to Europe is absolutely huge. And Putin would dearly love to invade NATO territory, but let's ensure that NATO is in such a strong position the Russians dare not attack NATO territory. And I do think that President Trump wants to leave the NATO alliance as a far, far stronger partnership 4 years from now than it is today. So he's firmly committed to the defense of Europe and to the future of the NATO alliance.
So Piero, certainly Niall expanded our discussion frame here, the importance of really not narrowly focusing on tariff issue, for example, in the context of US-Korea under 2.0. As you know well, Piero, there are many other dimensions and aspects of US-Korea alliance and partnership, and also in the context of, Trans-Pacific and transatlantic, in a way, there could be some kind of linkage when it comes down to geo-economic interaction. What can you share with us in terms of this kind of geo-economic context, as Niall alluded? And would you agree with Niall's general assessment? What's the congressional mood once again?
Yeah, no, he makes an important point. And again, if you look at Trump 1.0 and pivoting off of that, the comments about NATO, I think in 2017, so the first year of the Trump presidency, there are only, I think, 2 NATO countries that met their 2% NATO
Good point.
Every year subsequent to that, so 2018, 2019, 2020, it increased. And interestingly, in 2021, the number dropped again. And then, of course, Russia invaded Ukraine, so it shot up. So I think the sort of the tough love that Trump brought to NATO in Trump 1.0, I think that is consistent. And I think it's also the way he approaches tariffs. And I would put, the upcoming negotiations with the Korean team that's visiting DC. There are really 2 baskets, but one are the China tariffs and then everything else. And there is some overlap in that in that too. So you have to look at China as completely different. And again, when it acceded to the WTO and all the promises it made, the idea of bringing in a country that's mercantilist, that's predatory, that has a state sponsorship of national champions, that is able to devote resources not just to specific industries but to specific countries, that undercuts prices because they use slave labor, that also steals intellectual property of its competitors. The notion that you could bring that country and have it included as part of the global trading system really was, talk about mistakes were made. Well, a big mistake was. So there's that, and that's I think one aspect of what Trump is trying to do. And then there's everyone else, and I think following that sort of tough love Trump 1.0 NATO model, the idea is to basically look at countries and say, look, the landscape has changed. European countries and when we, after World War II, the rules were slanted in the favor of these economies. That includes Korea as well, and Japan, that we wanted to see rebuild. We're going to see the economies rebuild and some export markets to our economy too. But that has shifted. So I think the Trump rhetoric on tariffs there is oriented towards a realignment that's fairer for all parties involved, and then will strengthen things, just as the tough love on NATO as well. I would say that some of the tariffs, for example, Canada and Mexico, are in part also China related, because I think one of the concerns is the transshipment of goods from China. You could say the same thing about some of the Southeast Asian nations, Vietnam as well. So it's in part to address transshipment, and it also is in part to address the fentanyl issue. People are very aware of the fentanyl that comes from China with the precursor chemicals, factories in Mexico and come across our border. But Canada also plays a role. Canadian financial institutions. TD Bank was fined over $3 billion by the Biden administration last October for its role in laundering money. So some of these other negotiations over tariffs are also China related. Once that gets straightened out, I think things will revert. We might see the U.S.-Canada Mexico Free Trade Agreement 2.0 as well. But I think, just to underscore Niall's point, I don't think this is something to fear. It is, I think, a sort of tough love, and we will all be stronger for it, because I think our alliances are strong. Our alliance with Korea, and as we saw in that preamble there, it was forged in blood. That is still very important.
That's very reassuring to hear, tough love and the two baskets of this tariff situation, especially from you, Piero Torci, because, your professionalism, maintaining, objectivity and independence in terms of analyzing the situation, that really important and also matters a lot to our Korean audience here, especially probably company representatives, because like I said earlier, a lot of nervousness, anxiety, as well as curiosity. But it's good that, as you pointed out, South Korea is not in China basket. South Korea is with Japan, Australia, UK, India, when it comes down to tariff negotiation, basically the first league of countries. And Japan already did its visit to Washington last week. And now, as we talked about, South Korea is going to be in Washington, D.C., the team. And then they're going to meet with the Treasury Secretary and then others. So let's see what happens. But I think that your kind of assessment that really puts things into a greater, more precise context. One quick question, Piero. Perhaps if I describe what we are going through under 2.0 at this particular stage, if I describe it, we are going through, let's say, organized chaos and structured uncertainty. Would that be too much? I mean, compared to Trump 2.0, 1.0, 2.0 seems to be a lot more, let's say, it's better organized in a sense. It's still chaotic, but it seems to be a bit better organized. So if we say organized chaos, structured uncertainty, would that be too much, or would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I like especially that structured uncertainty. I think that's true. There is a plan. It seems it does create a lot of uncertainty, which for businesses and for planning 6 months ahead, that's difficult. So there is, I think, a period now where we're going to have a lot of difficulty, but things I think will shake out. I think. One sees, I guess it's a method to the madness, as it were. I think that the unpredictability is in some ways strategic, and it's also, our relationship with China and our other adversaries too. President Nixon famously, I think, was someone, and he had Henry Kissinger trying to explain him to the Soviets then when they had the Yom Kippur War. He said, well, Nixon's out of control. I can't say what he's going to do. And he played that to his, I think, strategic advantage there. So I think there's some of that as well, while that uncertainty is difficult for businesses to make adjustments. I think there is a structure to it, as you point out, and that I think once things settle and come into sharper focus, things will calm down. And I think when we start to see these trade deals, that will provide a lot of assurance.
Thank you, Pierre. I'll give you 1 more minute, actually, given your specialty. Candidly, 1 minute, okay? Let us know your view on China, especially economic sense. Do you think that China is getting nervous about its economic future, or is getting more confident? How do you see, let's say, the health of the Chinese economy?
China is very brittle, and Xi Jinping is in a very precarious position. All these people that say he's in control and he's purging his own people, like Miao Hua, that's not true. I mean, you have Zhang Youxia, the PLA #1, I think, is the main source of opposition. But the Chinese economy, in part because Xi Jinping was very bad for the economy. Li Keqiang, the former premier, had a different vision, and he's been taken off the chessboard. He passed away under strange circumstances 2 years ago almost. So China's economy continues to be very brittle, and the pressure of tariffs, since they depend on exports, heightens that brittleness. We have certain laws like the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which, if we see greater enforcement of that, I think you will, and you've also seen some of that in Korea, for example, the forced labor from North Koreans in China, fish, that's both in the catching of the fish, there's forced labor, and in the processing. You often have North Korean women in China that are processing this fish. There's, I think, an effort in South Korea to address that. If we maintain our principles and push back against that, you'll see a brittleness in the Chinese economy, and also brittleness there with Xi Jinping. And I think that will ultimately cause China to have to recalibrate and aggressive approach.
Thank you for that candid assessment. I mean, obviously, today's China is very different from China we used to know, let's say, before pandemic and even before Trump 1.0. So I think we should keep that in mind. Now, quickly, Eric, I want to do quick speed dating with you when it comes down to U.S.-South Korea economic relationship. You know, you and I, we've been talking, United States and South Korea. South Korea, exporter of goods to the United States. So the role of exporting, United States as a big market, let's say big brother or good partner, United States has been importing goods from South Korea. But that trade relationship, it seems to me a bit more simplistic in today's context. Of course, trade is important. But do you see any potential opportunity, US, South Korea, the two countries become co-investor, co-developer, co-builder, which means going beyond this trading relationship, like export-importer relationship? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, the Koreans have been a model economic partner, I think, for the United States, and they've gone from simple exports to a more complex and intertwined relationship. Everything from K-pop to investing in real, actual factories and entire supply chains, mostly in the Southeast United States, but not only. Bringing in battery technologies, localizing content, and really have been a leader in what it looks like to take a South Korean company and make it an American company. I think that from the United States' perspective, that the relationship we need to go is towards maritime. The United States is both an Atlantic and a Pacific power. Years ago, we had massive shipbuilding capacity. We lack that capacity right now. Korea has a deep bench of shipbuilding technology, of shipbuilding capabilities that the United States could benefit from. And we need to work as allies and partners, not only, again, intertwining this economic and this security relationship around the maritime industry, because we really need to reshore some of that, and I think that this administration is looking to reshore a lot of that maritime capacity, not only in containerized shipping, but also in LNG ships, of which there is a back order of, I think, 18 or 24 months right now, to make sure that the US can supply Asia in the event of any physical kinetic hostilities in the region. We need to be able to take LNG from the United States to support the Asian region and our Asia allies, and we just don't have the capacity right now, and we need to ramp that up extremely quickly.
In that context, let me go back to this like co-investor, co-builder, co-developer. I'm talking about infrastructure projects around the world. Korea has capacity. Korea has a wonderful companies, small, medium, and big. Do you see any potential like really strategic partnership? For example, DFC, Development Finance Corporation, and its counterpart in South Korea. For example, Korea Overseas Infrastructure and Urban Development Corporation. I mean, I'm just thinking loud here. Do you see that kind of strategic partnership potential?
Yeah, and this has been a big thrust of this administration in the early days, and I've been in some of those discussions about the reformatting of the Millennium Challenge Corporation, of reinvigorating and expanding the mandate of DFC. I already think that we do see some cooperation among our Asian allies. The Koreans and the Japanese are working together to rebuild poorly built Chinese infrastructure in a few ASEAN nations. I think that it would be well advised for the United States to join in that operation and to show show the world what we can do with our allies. If you look at the FDI capital stack in any ASEAN nation, and you count up the South Korean, Japanese, and American FDI into those ASEAN nations, it dwarfs any Chinese. Dwarfs it. And so we realize we need to bring that to our ASEAN friends to show them that there's a lot more benefit through cooperation with the United States, cooperation with our Asian allies, to building a future in which we have joint prosperity rather than an extractive relationship that is a zero-sum game.
I think given what's happening in Washington, especially in terms of a USAID presence, it's a new chapter. So maybe this kind of strategic partnership between Washington and Seoul, infrastructure development, especially countries in Europe, Central and Eastern Europe especially, and other parts of the world, I think that would be very practical engagement.
Absolutely, and very quickly, there's a very clear distinction here. I put South Korea in a frontline state capacity. So Finland, Poland, the Baltics, Romania, Bulgaria, Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea are all frontline nations that need to get that balance of economic security and economic freedom exactly right.
Excellent point. Now, you probably have a last 1 minute or so. Very quickly, over the years, you've been advising the late Iron Lady, Lady Thatcher, multiple presidential candidates in the United States. South Korea will go through its own presidential election in June. Regardless, whatever party candidates, if you advise kind of policy solutions or options, how would you, what would you do? What would you say? Especially if we say it's time to really think big and reinvent and adopt this evolving reality under 2.0. And the question becomes then how to maximize Trump opportunities and minimize Trump risk. Would you agree, or would you say something like that? How would you advise Korean policymakers?
Yes, so I'd advise whoever leads Korea next to move fast, to build a very close partnership with the Trump White House, make it a very top priority, and be close to the new US administration. And that way, I think that South Korea can be very well positioned in terms of strengthening that crucial, vital partnership, but move with real speed and engage really very closely with the US administration and send a very early signal that South Korea is going to be an absolutely vital, essential partner for President Trump in his second presidency. And I think that, you know, sending a message of warmth, cooperation, willingness to work closely together at a very early stage is absolutely vital. And I think that's the kind of message that President Trump's going to respond to very, very positively. President Trump likes allies that are really self-sufficient, that they are stepping up to the plate in terms of their own defense spending. South Korea, of course, is doing that. He likes allies that can really strengthen vital cooperation with Washington, while I think engaging in very, very robust discussion behind the scenes, but be really close to the U.S. administration at a very early stage. That way, South Korea can have, I think, real impact very, very early on in this presidency. So.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gardner, for that very, very candid recommendation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is only the part of conversation we'll have. And this journey, this journey together with the MoneyToday's key platform will continue. But for now, please join me in thanking Piero Torci in Washington. Thanks again, Piero, for your wonderful assessment and time, and Dr. Niall Gardner, and our good friend Eric Holmes. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And I'll stay here to go down. Is it okay?
Okay, sir, we gotta go. We gotta move.
네. 이제 앞에서 얘기했던 거를 조금 더 우리가 세분화해서 이번 세션을 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 그래서 지금 이제 패널리스트들이 올라오시면
마지막에
이제 한미 관계를 더 넘어서 과연 또 무엇을 할 수 있는 게 있는가 여러분과 또 함께 고민하는 자리를 갖도록 하겠습니다. Thank you, gentlemen and lady. Thanks for joining us, MoneyToday's key platform. This conversation will be very practical. I don't have to explain. I don't have to introduce who they are. Very briefly, I'll just go over the name. My good friend from Poland and new friend of MoneyToday's key platform, Liliana Smith, and our good friend from Japan, Okata Hideki-san, and also from Korea, not far from this hotel, Conrad. There's a very important agency. He will explain that. Our good friend, Bezer Lee, Lee Mu-hyuk. Thank you very much for joining us. This session is a bit like unique because we want to see how we can expand Korea's role when it comes down to private sector engagement, just beyond bilateral setting of United States and South Korea. Especially, we want to focus on economic security dimension and also things that we can do perhaps in Central and Eastern Europe. Definitely, we'll talk about a little bit on how to engage potential reconstruction process concerning Ukraine. It's going to definitely take some time, but I think that at least this is a good time to think about potential process and opportunities for Korea and Korean companies. I want to start with Bezer, if I may. For our audience, especially press and also private company representative, I mean, I know a little bit of your organization, but I want to give you an opportunity to share what kind of work your organization has been doing in terms of doing this economic diplomacy for South Korea.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. But before I start anything, I just would like to clearly say that these are my personal views, and I do not represent my organization nor the government, and it's pure speculation from the experience that I've had in this line of work for years. So, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, our organization is called K.E.Y, 한국해외 인프라 도시개발 지원공사, which is located right next to this building, IFC 3 on the 50th and 51st floor. So what we do is basically an equity provider, public financier, or you may just call us an investor for infrastructure projects. But the funny thing is, not like other legacy financial institutions in Korea, we have some sort of a handful of development funding options. So in a way, we can identify ourselves as a developer and the investor of the infrastructure projects, and also as a whole, we are policy instrument of the Republic of Korea. So when there is a target, or when there is a good target nation, we go there and we develop the project. We can develop the project from the upstream. By the upstream, I mean is the realm of idea, and we can step by step we can specify those ideas into the real project by providing the fundings for the master plan, by providing fundings for feasibility studies based upon the master plan deliverables we provided. So once feasibility study is done, it is possible for us to take the position of an investor ourselves together with local or global entities as well, including Join right next to us, which is our brother company, established 5 years earlier. So our organization was established in the year 2018, and the vast majority of the shares are being held by the Korean government. And in the year, through the 7 years since our inception, we could have successfully invested more than 29 projects worldwide, of which the total amount of commitment is beyond $600 million.
Thank you for that brief intro. As I understand from you, K.E.Y seems to be a very specialized entity, agency, which will and can play a bigger role when it comes down to infrastructure partnership with the different countries around the world, kind of investment banking unit. So I just want to make sure that our audience, especially private sector representatives, are aware of this unique agency that South Korea contains and try to develop further. I want to get to you, Liliana, before I go to Okada-san. You're from Poland, obviously, but you do a lot of things in Europe. Nowadays, you spend quite some time in Hungary and other parts of European cities. When you see Korea, Europe, especially Central and Eastern European interaction, do you see growing opportunities? And obviously, you know, it's been well reported, this growing kind of engagement between South Korea and Poland, whether defense cooperation or culture. How do you assess this relationship, Korea and Central Eastern Europe?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you, Moni2Day and K.E.Y for hosting me. It's very good to be back in South Korea. And just answering directly your question, well, I must say that the relationship between Central Europe and South Korea is growing tremendously. South Korea is not just a regional partner, but I must say that it's a global player. And for Central Europe, Seoul is, first of all, crucial partner in enhancing our security, and here I'm mainly talking about the defense sector, but at the same time it's a very crucial partner for us in terms of diversifying energy resources, because Europe is in a kind of, I would say, difficult situation. First of all, because of the war in Ukraine, but at the same time because of our not the best fitted green climate policy that we have adopted. And at the same time, Seoul is extremely important partner for us with enhancing the technology innovation. And you mentioned Poland. I'm Polish, but I'm, as you mentioned, traveling all around the EU. South Korea is top Asian investor for Poland, and it is second largest investor if you look at the countries from outside the European Union. So the opportunities are huge, also with the new Trump administration. So this is actually the moment to finally go beyond just the discussions and implement tangible projects.
So this is real. This is not just people are talking about.
No.
Things are happening on the ground.
Yes.
Private sector companies are going and getting things done. So there are big potentials in terms of growing.
Huge.
Huge. Now, Mr. Okada-san,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us. I know you are a very busy man, especially when you do a lot of strategic interconnect kind of thinking, especially in the space of economic security. I want to connect what Bezer kind of introduced in terms of infrastructure development and the Korea's opportunity with the Central and Eastern Europe. But Japan has been doing, same kind of exercise, maybe a bit ahead of the curve than South Korea. It's notable that your country, Japan, has something called Economic Security Ministry. It's a cabinet level.
Yeah.
South Korea doesn't have that yet. And also, you are the brain of establishing official security assistance. Could you share some of your insights on those fronts?
Okay, thank you very much, Kim-san, and very honored to be here today. Well, just before going to some my insight, but just a quick introduction of my organization. We are joined. It's a quite similar organization as K.E.Y here. We are a little bit older than him. We are established back in 2014, and our purpose is to push Japanese companies into the infrastructure market in overseas. And we are acting as equity, not a debt, so that we are always a partner with, on the same board with their sponsors. And also, we have done up to now 43 projects all over the world. Unfortunately, there is no credential in Korea, but we can do. And also, we are not. We need to always partner with Japanese companies, but of course, we are welcome to partner with Korean companies as well. And if you look at the world itself, there's a lot of opportunity, and especially for like ASEAN countries or African countries, and also maybe India. We see lots of infrastructure needs there, and but if you look at the Japan itself, we cannot do everything just Japan, So we need to partner with the others, including Korea. And there are lots of space with partnering with Korea, especially. And that's I think that's why I think we are getting close to his organization, K.E.Y, and we go together in the South countries. And it's not only like Japan, Korea, but also the U.S. And there is a quite similar organization called the DFC.
DFC.
Right? And in the UK, it's called the BII. There is the world, called the ECA World, which is the Export Credit Agency. But now they are doing only the debt or insurance, but we are doing equity. So it's completely different world, I suppose, yeah? And equity is quite how to say, playing an important role to understand all the project from the scratch. Debt provider, of course, they're quite important, but they participate in the project in the later stage. But if it's equity, you need to grasp everything from the scratch and do build together with the other sponsors or local host countries. So it's quite important, and also to collect all the information is very important. So as such, and also it will lead to economic security as well, right? So that as you questioned to me earlier, that we have a security Economic Security Cabinet, the members here. Well, so we recognize that, well, it's not, I think that the shifting to not like a globalization right now. Maybe we have seen before the World War II, but it's completely different because it's all the technologies changed or whatever. So I think important thing is to align or partner with like a Korea and go together outside.
I think that's a very fitting into my next question because I want to remind our audience of very important milestones we are celebrating this year. It's the 80th anniversary of Korea's independence from Japan. And also, it's our 60th anniversary of Japan-South Korea diplomatic normalization. So this is a very important milestone in our very important relationship between Japan and South Korea. And as Mr. Okada-san really laid out, kind of working together in a practical way, kind of going beyond, Indo-Pacific theater, building infrastructure together. I think that's a really like a good idea. And I think that given the fact that President Trump, he's in a way builder, real estate, business background and all that, who knows this kind of triangular relationship, Washington, Tokyo, Seoul, in the name of infrastructure development, kind of projects around the world with like-minded willing partners. I think that could be something maybe we can consider.
Like-minded.
In that context, Bezer, are there any particular cases you can highlight when it comes down to this kind of infrastructure, either feasibility study or actual cases? I mean, I'm just thinking loud here because I don't know your organization that well. What countries you've been traveling and doing research? I don't know, Hungary or any other countries? I'm just making up. Maybe Ukraine too, probably.
Maybe, yeah. Well, actually, for Ukraine, I think that now that currently the Japanese government is now studying all the stuff right now. But except for, of course, well, first priorities for us is, I think, ASEAN countries. Well, it's quite amazingly that in the past decades that the Japanese companies are quite willing to invest into the ASEAN countries, especially in the urban development area, right? But before like 2000, I mean, well, they're quite not so pay attention to ASEAN countries. But once they think that, oh, it's safer, then everybody go there, right? And for area that I can see right now is that, of course, ASEAN, and especially like the Philippines, and also the Indonesia. And if you look at the Africa, I think most exciting market right now is Egypt, I think.
Great,
right.
Great to know. So Africa and ASEAN. Bezer, how about Korea, What kind of specific case studies can you share?
Well, what can I say? Well, not exactly like what is happening in US and Japan. To us, it appears that infrastructure projects are purely based upon economy and the finance factors. So when it comes to economy and finance factors, well, Southeast Asia is of course a robust market that we always keep our eyes on. And one other peculiar new market that we are trying to eye on is of course Central and Eastern Europe. Because EU market has a huge diversity, even though we name it as a whole EU. And Eastern European countries have a very high needs for Korean capital, Korean technology, not to mention that our most recent military and defense export was done together with Poland. And Ukraine is also, and Romania and the country that's adjacent to Ukraine are all possible areas of collaboration. So, under our authority, we have specified fundings for expanding the Korea Smart City concept of which the name is Korea City Network, which allows municipalities of the world and the global governments to submit applications so that they could be funded from our side, so that they could establish a master plan with smart solutions that are already in place in Korea. So nowadays, what I've been finding is that a lot of applications are coming from European side, Czech Republic, even from Poland. So I believe the potential is very high in the Central Eastern market, considering the relatively low development of the economy of the nations. We believe there are a lot of infrastructure projects we can do economically, and based upon that, we can utilize those areas as our strategic ground for further expansion into EU market.
I mean, in that context, obviously, once again, it'll take time. It's not going to be overnight process, but you know, Korean companies, Korean policymakers, perhaps should think about when the day comes. I'm talking about the ceasefire, the sort of the how to end the war, what President Trump has been pursuing. When the day comes, when it comes down to reconstructing the Korean economy, South Korea can play a role, especially South Korean companies potentially can play a role. Is this something that K.E.Y has been paying attention to as well?
So when it comes to reconstruction, I would like to rename it, redefine it as rebuilding. Because language dominates our idea. So to truly understand a phenomena or something, we have to name it in the right way. So by naming it reconstruction, our focus is on building infrastructures, tangible infrastructures. But rebuilding Ukraine is not just an recovery of tangible infrastructure damaged by war. It is rather a national transformation of an obsolete Soviet Union satellite country into a full member of EU, Western, free economy.
So much bigger scale than I realized.
Yes, it's going to take a decade. And it encompasses all types of national agenda as a whole, including regulatory framework, administration
legal
criteria, scientific criteria, everything. For instance, Ukraine is using still large gauge as in a train, but European countries are using European standard gauge, which is narrower. And all these type of things must be transformed so that they could be fully accessed into EU, which is their strategic national goal, as I understand.
So Liliana Bezer mentioned that opportunities and the actual practical engagement South Korea has been doing through K.E.Y in Central and Eastern Europe, and you mentioned energy cooperation is one of them, and you are also among many of your heads, you are energy expert as well. For example, let's talk about Poland and then a few other countries in the region, including Romania. When we look at energy options nowadays, nuclear is gaining a lot more momentum, especially under President Trump's energy policy, either conventional nuclear power plants, big scale, or small modular reactor, SMR. How do you see potential horizon on that front? And obviously, as you know, South Korean companies are very interested in participating in SMR development too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say that Poland and South Korea, we're natural allies, not just in values, but also in strategy. So we're both committed to, first of all, sovereignty, national identity, but at the same time, the economic dynamism. And here I see a lot of opportunities within the energy sector. And actually, especially in Poland, where our energy mix is still in majority dependent on coal, and because of our commitments that we did in 2019 and then further within the years to actually become more so-called green or climate neutral, here the nuclear power plant sector is the most important for us because, first of all, it will give us some energy security, but at the same time we will be in compliance with the regulations that we all agreed to. And the Korean partner that has already been on the table, can be a potential partner for us in the future. Unfortunately, in the case of Poland, it is more, for now, a political decision. We had the elections, We have a new government. Unfortunately, at this moment, very big strategic projects that were agreed by the previous government, they were unfortunately stopped. But hopefully, in the due course, we will have also presidential elections very soon in Poland. All of those projects will be finally put on the table again, because it is in our national interest and it is in the interest of the free Western world.
As an energy expert, you also often visit Washington to meet others, engage conversations and discussions. What do you see? I mean, if we talk about this kind of Poland-South Korea engagement, what kind of reception do you think we will see in Washington? Do you think that Washington, recognize the importance of this relationship and try to facilitate it, or just being, indifferent? How do you see, potential reaction from Washington?
Well, I'm not a U.S. citizen, so I can only assume. Well, from our perspective, rather the cooperation between, especially Central Europe and South Korea, Japan, would be supported by the new administration. I would say, as you mentioned, we are living in a very dynamic and interesting times that are sometimes unpredictable in a way, but we believe that the United States of America are very important, crucial partner, ally for Europe. We need to take into consideration that the European Union consists of 27 countries, so we have 27 totally different interests at the end of the day. Sometimes it's not so easy for us to work together on different issues, but I believe there are some strategic topics, and energy is one of them, that we need to work together, and I'm pretty sure that we will have some support from US.
I mean, obviously, I was playing devil's advocate because, you and I, we actually know a number of people in Washington who pay attention to this expanded partnership, especially energy area, when it comes down to, either Korea, Japan, Central Eastern European country. But this is something I think we can continue to cultivate and grow strategic partnership. That's why I was asking that question. But it's good to hear your the assessment is similar to what many others are seeing.
Yes, and even if not within the strictly European Union brackets, there are many other platforms that we can develop that they are not in contrary to the European Union, but I would say they are supporting it. And one of those platforms is the 3Cs initiative that has been supported by the previous Trump administration, and I hope it will be also supported by this one. And it actually gives a lot of opportunity to other partners like South Korea and Japan to invest in the infrastructure, either with terms of transportation, energy, or digitalization that is also very crucial for us.
And Mr. Okada-san, I want to go back to my earlier point on your role in terms of establishing official security assistance. Could you share with us your insight, ODA, Official Development Assistance, and then there's a new kind of channel Japan has installed, Official Security Assistance. What's the difference? I mean, obviously, the big picture is that development assistance is very much more economic focused, and security assistance is more focused on security dimension. Could you share with us your insight on those?
Okay. Actually, I'm not in charge of that area, but just for my personal opinion, right? For ODA, up to now, I used to be Japan was #1 ODA provider in the world, but not recently, unfortunately. But ODA's the mindset is to help the host country. Why? Because Japan had money. That's it, right? Well, of course, there's a lot of political stuff, but just to simplify that, and we have technology and experience. That's why we should help or assist the developing countries. That's ODA's mindset. On the other hand, the security ODA is a little bit different. I think it's more geopolitical factor have, so that it's more due for Japan. And also we are, well, actually its purpose is to help the country, how can I say, the security itself, but at the same time, it means that the security for Japan as well. So how can I say, the philosophy is that I think completely different, I think.
I see. Bezer, you mentioned, the smart city projects, K-City network, and all that. How many of those projects are currently undergoing? That's my number one question. And number two, when you do that, how do you incorporate, my question is, how do you incorporate Korean companies into that kind of infrastructure development project? Is there anything you can share with us, especially for our private sector company representatives with us today?
Okay, the exact number of projects that has been done and ongoing, I'm not pretty much sure. There's too specific, but almost 50. When it comes to Korea City Network. And about feasibility study that we have conducted is more than, as far as I understand, is 70 by now. And when it comes to project, and when we are trying to make a project, what really matters is, as Rome was not built in one day, the project with the private investment scheme that we're doing takes time, at least 3 years to 5 years to maturity. So there are a lot of groundworks, what we call project preparations. Building master plans, building feasibility studies are all part of that. And after we build project feasibility, based upon that we have to attract the project elements, what we call construction companies, O&M companies, and possible investors from all around. With them all combined, we can come up with a deal structure, sponsorships, and then we can try to go to the bank for financing if it is needed. And that's typically how it is done. So one very important milestone is financial close, which encompasses all kinds of agreements from all financial entities. It's like a promise that we're going to pay for this on this condition. And that is the most important milestones. To reach that, there are a lot of works to be done. The feasibility study must be conducted in a very transparent way, which is one of the distinguishable points from what is going on in Belt and Road initiatives. And also, to win the project, there are a lot of efforts needed, much more than I explained. So, Korean companies, especially when it comes to construction sector, as our economy is going up, it is harder and harder for our construction companies to win projects. Why? Because it's too expensive. Because salary went too high. The same problem Japan suffered too. So, like you said, a bit ahead of the curve. Exactly, because what we believe, as I've been working in this sector, I believe Japan is like 5 to 10 years ahead of us. They have experienced the problems that we are facing now, and they have come up with their own version of the answers. And the answer is, they're no longer focusing on construction itself. They have shifted the focus from construction to selling the core value of Japan for decades by focusing on O&M. And how do they win the projects? They are working from the upstream, from the level of idea. As JICA has spent a tremendous amount of money in the Southeast Asia to the government by providing them master plans, by providing them policy advisory for the government. That's how they have done. In doing so, they have tried to make Japanese criteria global criteria. And when this idea comes down to the reality, master plan, feasibility study, and when all this concept becomes a real and tangible project opportunity, it becomes like friendly and favorable for Japanese companies to win, because Japanese companies are already familiar with the criteria that is applied to the project concept. So that's how they win the projects. So this is the strategy that we are trying to copy. in the developing countries, we are trying to, the Korea City Network funding that you just mentioned is part of that funding initiative that we have. So so that we could deal with swim in the upstream, and when it goes down in the downstream, we can have the project initiative that is friendly to Korean companies to win. That is our strategy.
So in a sense, really, I think what your organization is doing is not only just a pure practical infrastructure development, it's an economic diplomacy. It's a really securing economic security in a sense.
There is one thing I would like to say, sir, if I may, because after experiencing negotiation and discussions with Japanese entities like JOIN and traveling European countries, I have come to some sort of understanding, which is my personal understanding though, because USIDFC was created in the Trump administration version 1.0, based upon the BUILD Act. And it says, not like other financial institutions, the FC is governed by the logic of Department of State, which means it serves national interest of United States of America, not just financial gain. And also, when I look into the official documents of Japanese government, the Ministry of Transportation, it says free and open Indo-Pacific strategy in it, embedded. So Japanese financial institutions must act in accordance with the policy. But in Korea, there is no such context as far as I understand. So what I would like to tell you is that our government has successfully identified the concept of supply chain as a key core concept serving economic security. But maybe we have to add another concept, another layer, which is infrastructure. Because I would like to make an analogy. There are a lot of people making analogy the world as a chessboard. But I would like to make an analogy, the world as a board of Baduk, the game of Go. Why? Because infrastructure could serve a role as a stone. Just one stone means nothing, but if there are two stones, there is a conceptual connection. It's imaginary. It does not exist in the real world, but in this conceptual connection, we can think about territories, which is Baduk의 집. And this is conceptual territory, but this could be interpreted as security corridor, economic corridor, because the stones, the infrastructure creates its own network dynamics connected to other infrastructures. So infrastructure could be conceived as a form, and in this vessel, we can put a lot of contents like economy, trade, and security.
That's a very good point, Bezer, because in a way, I like that corridor concept. In the end, the key platforms, this year's theme is kind of legacy, the crackings in the legacy, in a way, the existing system. And those cracks are actually creating a space, kind of, that was not existing. So perhaps that's an opportunity. And when we try to utilize those cracks in a positive way, if we do it right way, kind of infrastructure development, that involves many different things, not only just the conventional infrastructure, but AI and other, IT. I mean, that's why Smart City Project matters, and IT, the K-City network, I think that's very important to Korea's economic diplomacy as well as the Korean companies' participations. So I want to go back to Liliana. When it comes down to Central and Eastern Europe and Korea relationship, obviously, nowadays it's more than just curiosity. Companies there are actually interested in doing it. But from your kind of perspective, what is still kind of the biggest hurdle here in terms of Korean companies going there? I mean, Europe, especially Central and Eastern Europe, is not, let's say, typical markets for South Korea companies. They still think that it's a bit of a different market.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. But on the other hand, I must say that there are already a lot of companies, because as I just mentioned, Korea is the biggest investor in Poland. If we look at the Asian investors,
Hungary as well, as far as I remember. Is that right?
Well, it used to be the biggest investor. Well, now the situation is shifting, shifting a little bit, not just in Hungary, but in many other countries. What is still missing, I believe, is this rather longer perspective. And I don't know where exactly or whose fault is it, but in the EU we have a tendency that we do not focus on a longer-term project. So we are proposing 5 years constraints, and we need much longer. Maybe it would give us some more credibility for our external partners. That's what I'm noticing with our partners from Caucasus region, from Central Asia. They're always expressing some kind of a anxiousness because we in Europe don't actually know how the situation will look like in the future. So I believe we need longer-term projects. Recently, ministers of foreign affairs from South Korea and Poland met and signed new deals. And the problem is, again, that the deals are until 2028. So we need longer perspective, and maybe it would encourage more companies actually to come. However, I must say the situation is very good. As Eric mentioned, South Korea is, I would say, amazing exporter of culture, of beauty products, of food products, of energy sector, defense sector. But I believe that maybe, on the other hand, we would need a little bit of more products from Central Europe in South Korea. Maybe it will also could make our region more recognizable here.
That's actually a good point, too. Before we start our MoniToday Key Platform, I had an opportunity to talk to our Master of Ceremony, Andrew Robel. We're talking about different things, but the importance of this timely gathering in Seoul, and also a process that we must pay attention to. That's like, how we process our information, how we process what's ahead of us. In a way, that's kind of solution-finding process. So we got to adapt as well as adapt the reality and try to reinvent what kind of opportunities and as well as a risk that are ahead of us so that we can move forward rather than just standing still and just getting nervous or worry about, the uncertainty and all that. I think this panel's discussion, I think we made a small attempt. There are many other opportunities for Korea, not only as a country, but private sector leaders, companies, whoever that may be. That opportunities can be only realized when we have this kind of mindset of adding and multiplying, reinventing our possibilities for greater future. So for that journey, I'm sure our experts from Korea, Poland, and Japan, they work together. And I really think that there is a case to make. Washington, Seoul, Europe, I think we can actually work together in a practical sense. I'm not talking about the whole political theater here, but economic, private sector engagement, I think it's more than ever, we need that kind of great engagement together. With that, we will conclude this session. Thank you very much for your attention. And please join me thanking our great panelists for this conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Not working? Oh, now it is. Yes, fantastic. So I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to all those who contributed to these discussions. And Anthony, thanks for reminding everyone of reinvention as a tool for developing the future. While there remain many complex issues to address, hearing from some of Washington's foremost experts offers us a glimpse of how we might navigate these uncertain times. And I must say, I no longer see the present moment as something to be feared or framed solely as a crisis. What we are witnessing may in fact be the early signals of a new order, and with it, the emergence of new opportunities. In such moments, quiet reinvention often begins, not through declarations, but through shifts in direction, thinking, and intent. With that in mind, we now turn to the next theme, artificial intelligence. First, we will hear from Professor Hee-Sun Young of the School of Law at Hanyang University, who will explore where Korea might find opportunity in the evolving global competition for AI leadership, with particular attention to the country's policy and regulatory framework. Following this, Professor Yoon will be joined by Renaud Vedel, conseiller d'État at the Conseil d'État of the French Republic, to share European perspectives and explore avenues for collaboration. The session will be moderated by President Hu Sung-yu of the Unicorn Business Institute. Please join me in welcoming Professor Yoon to the stage with a warm round of applause.
안녕하십니까. 오늘 이 뜻깊은 자리에 함께해 주신 모든 분들께 진심으로 감사드립니다. 이렇게 여러분 앞에 연사로 서게 되어 큰 영광입니다. 인공지능이 가져오는 변화는 이제 누구도 부인할 수 없는 현실입니다. 매일 새로운 기술적 진보가 이루어지고 우리의 일상은 점점 더 인공지능과 밀접하게 연결되고 있습니다. 그러나 오늘 저는 익숙한 기술 중심의 논의를 넘어 한 걸음 더 깊이 들어가 근본적인 질문을 던지고자 합니다. 과연 인공지능을 둘러싼 패권 경쟁의 본질은 무엇일까요? 지금 이 순간에도 전 세계는 누가 가장 강력한 인공지능을 만들 것인가 라는 경쟁에 몰두해 있습니다. 각국 정부와 기업들은 더 많은 데이터를 확보하고 최신 GPU를 대량 구매하며 더 강력한 슈퍼컴퓨터를 구축하고 천문학적인 자본을 투자하고 있습니다. 또한 세계 최고의 인공지능 인재를 양성하고 유치하기 위해 총력을 기울이고 있습니다. 하지만 이러한 기술 중심의 경쟁에는 중요한 맹점이 있습니다. 기술 자체가 아무리 뛰어나도 그것이 번영할 수 있는 환경이 조성되지 않는다면 진정한 혁신으로 이어질 수 없기 때문입니다. 이것이 바로 제가 이 자리에서 제시하고자 하는 인공지능 패권 경쟁의 핵심입니다. 인공지능을 둘러싸고 세계 각국이 실제로 벌이고 있는 것은 단순한 기술 경쟁이 아닙니다. 이들은 보다 근본적인 공간 경쟁을 펼치고 있습니다. 인공지능 공간이란 무엇을 의미할까요? 이것은 연구자들이 자유롭게 인공지능을 연구하고 기업들이 이를 상용화하며 시민들이 일상에서 인공지능을 쉽게 활용하고 또 우리가 개발한 인공지능이 국경을 넘어 확산될 수 있는 총체적인 환경을 말합니다. 2025년 2월 파리에서 열린 인공지능 정상회담은 이러한 인공지능 공간 경쟁의 온도를 선명하게 보여주었습니다. 이 정상회담에서 특히 주목할 만한 변화는 기존의 인공지능 안전과 위험성 관리 중심의 담론에서 인공지능의 도입과 기회 창출로 초점이 이동했다는 점입니다. 주요국들은 인공지능 시대에 자국의 유리한 생태계를 확보하기 위해 치열하게 경쟁하고 있습니다. 서두의 질문으로 다시 돌아가 보겠습니다. 아무리 혁신적인 인공지능 기술도 그것이 성장하고 번영할 수 있는 공간이 없다면 그 잠재력을 온전히 실현할 수 없습니다. 인공지능 공간은 연구 개발에서부터 상용화, 활용, 그리고 다시 새로운 연구로 이어지는 선순환 과정을 지원하는 정책, 법과 규제, 제도로 형성됩니다. 인류의 역사는 이러한 통찰을 뒷받침하고 있습니다. 15세기 중구 명나라의 정화 함대는 당대 가장 발달된 항해 기술을 보유했음에도 불구하고 해금 정책이라는 제도적 결정으로 인해 그 우위를 상실했습니다. 반면 기술적으로는 열세였던 유럽은 탐험과 무역을 장려하는 제도적 환경을 조성하며 세계 해양 패권을 차지했습니다. 인공지능 경쟁의 본질은 단순히 누가 더 많은 기술자를 양성하고 더 강력한 컴퓨팅 인프라를 구축하는가에만 있지 않습니다. 궁극적으로는 이는 누가 더 매력적이고 더 효율적이며 더 신뢰할 수 있는 인공지능의 개발과 활용에 관한 게임의 규칙을 설계하고 준수하느냐의 문제입니다. 어떤 인공지능이 개발되고 어떻게 사용되며 어떤 가치를 우선시할 것인가를 결정하는 규범과 제도를 만들고 유지하는 것이 진정한 경쟁의 핵심입니다. 바로 이 지점에서 국가 인공지능 전략을 논의하는 자리에 과학자, 기술자, 기업가뿐만 아니라 저와 같은 법학자와 인문학자, 사회과학자들이 함께 해야 하는 이유가 있습니다. 인공지능 공간은 기술만으로는 완성될 수 없기 때문입니다. 이는 기술과 제도의 유기적인 결합을 통해 비로소 완성됩니다. 이러한 이유로 키플랫폼 2025년은 AI 공간 경쟁, 곧 제도를 다루고자 합니다. 제 강연 이후 이어지는 대담회에서는 인공지능 주권과 경쟁력의 제3의 길이라는 주제로 우리나라처럼 AI 공간을 마련하는 데 열심이고 성공을 거두고 있는 프랑스의 선택과 우리나라의 기회를 심도 깊게 논의할 것입니다. 키플랫폼 2025는 대한민국이 글로벌 AI 생태계에서 핵심 공간이자 키플랫폼으로 자리매김해야 한다고 제안합니다. 이는 단순한 국가 발전 전략을 넘어 인공지능 시대에 대한민국의 중요한 사명입니다. 키플랫폼 2025는 미국, 중국, 유럽과는 차별화된 그러나 이들 모두와 상호작용할 수 있는 독자적인 길을 개척할 수 있는 제도적 비전과 방안을 제시하고자 합니다. 우리나라는 기술적 역량뿐만 아니라 혁신적인 제도와 거버넌스를 통해 가장 매력적이고 경쟁력 있는 인공지능 공간을 구축할 수 있는 탁월한 제도적 역량을 갖추고 있다고 저는 생각합니다. 이 역량을 바탕으로 한국만의 독특한 가치와 비전을 글로벌 인공지능 생태계에 투영할 수 있을 것입니다. 한국이 인공지능 키 플랫폼으로 도약하기 위해서는 먼저 우리 시대의 큰 흐름을 정확히 읽어야 합니다. 기술 규제에 관한 시대적, 사상적 변화를 이해하는 것이 필수적인데요. 이는 단순한 정책 수정이 아닌 우리의 사고방식과 접근법 자체의 근본적인 전환을 요구하기 때문입니다. 20세기가 법이 지배하는 시대였다면 21세기는 이미 기술이 지배하는 시대입니다. 그러나 우리 사회의 제도와 인식은 아직 이러한 변화를 충분히 따라가지 못하고 과거의 방식에 관성적으로 머물러 있습니다. 기술이 지배하는 시대에서는 그렇다면 어떠한 제도적 패러다임과 사고적 전환이 필요할까요? 지난 20세기 법이 지배하는 시대를 철학자 한병철 씨는 규율사회로 정의하고 그 제도적 특성을 통찰력 있게 면역학적 패러다임이라고 명명했습니다. 제도의 관점에서 법의 지배 시대의 특징은 다음과 같습니다. 첫째, 규제는 정부 주도의 명령과 통제의 방식으로 이루어졌습니다. 법은 기업과 개인의 행동 범위를 명확히 규정했고 기업과 국민은 이에 복종하는 관계였습니다. 둘째, 정부는 면역학적 패러다임 아래 다른 것을 배제하는 수직적인 부문별 전문 규제를 발전시켰습니다. 한국의 압축 성장 과정에서 이러한 부처 간 칸막이는 영역별 전문성을 빠르게 축적하는 강점으로 작용했습니다. 셋째, 정책의 초점은 정부 주도의 기술 경쟁력 확보였습니다. 사전 규제를 통해 선별된 소수의 기업이 시장에 진입하고 이들에게 집중적인 지원이 이루어졌습니다. 넷째, 기술의 사회적 수용성은 강력한 사전 규제를 통해 간접적으로 확보되었습니다. 정부가 검증한 기술만이 시장에 출시되어 시민들의 신뢰를 얻었습니다. 규율사회 패러다임은 한국이 후발 산업국에서 선진국으로 도약하는 데 효과적이었습니다. 그러나 인공지능으로 대표되는 21세기 혁신 기술은 이러한 규제 패러다임의 근본적인 변화를 요구하고 있습니다. 21세기 기술이 지배하는 시대는 성과 사회로 불리며 성과 중심 패러다임을 추구합니다. 제도의 관점에서는 다음과 같은 변화가 감지되고 있는데요. 먼저 규제 방식을 성과 중심으로 재편할 것이 요구되고 있습니다. 제도와 규제는 명령과 통제보다 혁신의 성과를 창출하는 데 초점을 맞추고 혁신 자체가 사회적 가치로 인정받고 있습니다. 둘째, 성과 중심 패러다임은 사회의 심리적, 공간적 구조를 변화시키고 있습니다. 기존의 경계와 장벽은 허물어지고 다름이 틀림이 아닌 다양성으로 수용되고 인정받고 있습니다. 개방, 교류, 융합이 혁신의 필수 조건이 되었습니다. 셋째, 정책의 우선순위에는 기술 경쟁력과 나란히 제도 경쟁력 확보도 포함되었습니다. 민간이 주도하는 기술 혁신과 사회적 수용성을 동시에 보장하는 것이 중요해졌으며 자율 규제와 공동 규제가 발전하면서 강제하는 자유, 자유로운 강제라는 역설적 원리가 곳곳에서 작동하고 있습니다. 넷째, 사회적 수용성은 시민들로부터 얻어집니다. 사전 규제 방식의 정부의 판단보다 다양한 이해관계자들의 참여와 사회적 합의가 중요해진 것입니다. 이러한 성과 중심 패러다임은 인공지능 발전 양상에서 분명하게 나타나고 있는데요. 최근 스탠퍼드 대학이 발표한 2025 AI 인덱스 리포트는 이를 수치로 잘 보여주고 있습니다. 전 세계 인공지능 사용률이 78%에 달하고 산업계가 주도하는 인공지능 모델 개발이 90%를 차지한다는 사실은 성과 지향적 혁신이 얼마나 광범위하게 확산되었는지를 보여줍니다. 정부가 주도하는 통제 중심 패러다임에서 민간이 주도하는 성과 중심 패러다임으로의 전환이 이미 현실이 된 것입니다. 이러한 시대적 변화 속에 키플랫폼 2025는 대한민국이 글로벌 인공지능 생태계에서 핵심 공간이 되기 위한 4가지 제도적 혁신 방안을 제안합니다. 첫째, 규제 활용법에 대한 인식의 전환입니다. 우리는 이제 인공지능 공간을 창출하기 위해 규제는 혁신을 저해하고 혁신은 규제가 없는 곳에서 이루어진다는 이분법적 사고에서 벗어나야 합니다. 오히려 규제를 혁신을 촉진하는 도구로 활용해야 합니다. K.E.Y 플랫폼인 대한민국은 혁신을 장려하는 수단으로 규제를 선용하는 창의적인 제도들로 직조되어야 합니다. 규제의 형식과 내용, 이행 방식을 유연화하고 규제과학의 방법론을 적극 활용하는 것이 그 예가 될 수 있습니다. 우리나라는 그동안 명확한 규제와 강력한 정책 실행력으로 산업화에 성공했습니다. 그러나 인공지능 시대에는 혁신의 속도와 방향을 예측하기 어렵습니다. 이제 우리는 규제의 형식, 내용, 그리고 이행 방식 모두를 유연하게 전환해야 합니다. 경성법 중심에서 표준 행동강령과 같은 연성법으로 세부 규칙 중심에서 원칙 기반 규제로 그리고 정부 주도의 통제에서 산업계와 시민사회가 함께하는 공동 규제로 나아가야 합니다. 이를 통해 기업과 시민에게 우리의 인공지능 공간에 대한 예측 가능성과 법적 안정성, 신뢰를 줄 수 있습니다. 둘째, 불확실성에 대한 인식의 전환입니다. 우리는 불확실성은 사정관리가 어렵고 현실화된 것에 대응해야 한다는 관념에서 벗어나야 합니다. 오히려 불확실성과 리스크, 잠재적 위험을 적극적으로 관리하는 역량을 키워야 합니다. 인공지능 위험의 본질은 불확실성입니다. 우리의 제도가 지금까지 예측 가능한 위험을 방지하는 데 초점을 맞추었다면 인공지능 시대의 제도는 불확실한 리스크를 관리하는 데 초점을 맞추어야 합니다. K.E.Y 플랫폼인 대한민국은 불확실성이 능동적으로 관리되는 곳이어야 합니다. 리스크 관리 역량을 강화하는 방법 중 하나는 역량평가와 모니터링 제도를 확대하고 개별 시스템을 넘어 생태계 전체를 조망하는 시스템적 규제 설계를 도입하는 것입니다. 또한 정치적 변화나 정권 교체와 무관하게 인공지능 정책과 제도를 일관되게 지원할 수 있는 지식과 전문성의 저장소인 국가 차원의 인공지능 싱크탱크를 구축해야 합니다. 셋째, 규제 접근법에 대한 인식의 전환입니다. 경쟁력 있는 인공지능 공간을 창출하기 위해서는 개별 기술이나 산업 또는 각 정부 부처가 따로 관리하는 분절된 규제 방식에서 벗어나야 합니다. 이러한 방식도 물론 필요하지만 인공지능은 우리 사회 전반에 영향을 미치는 기술이기 때문에 더 넓은 시각이 필요합니다. K.E.Y 플랫폼인 대한민국은 하나이면서도 다양한 유기적 다양성 원칙이 구현되는 규제 생태계가 되어야 합니다. 마치 자연 생태계에서 다양한 생물들이 각자의 역할을 하면서도 전체적으로 조화를 이루듯 다양한 규제들이 서로 연결되어 균형을 이루는 체계를 만들어야 합니다. 인공지능은 단순한 기술 도구를 넘어 점차 우리 사회의 필수 인프라로 자리 잡고 있습니다. 인공지능은 전기나 도로처럼 사회 전반을 지탱하는 기반 시설이 되어가고 있다는 의미인데요. 그래서 인공지능은 경제, 의료, 교육, 문화, 환경 등 우리 삶 전 영역에 영향을 미치기 때문에 이를 관리하는 규제도 종합적인 관점에서 설계되어야 합니다. 예를 들어 곧 시행될 인공지능 기본법과 개별 분야의 전문 규제들이 서로 충돌하지 않고 상호 보완적으로 작동할 수 있도록 큰 그림을 그려야 합니다. 강조하고자 하는 것은 이러한 통합적 접근법이야말로 한국 규제 설계의 핵심 경쟁력이 되어야 한다는 점입니다. 이는 우리의 디지털 주권 확보에 결정적으로 기여할 것입니다. 개별 분야의 파편화된 규제로는 인공지능 강대국의 기술적 영향력에 효과적으로 대응하기 어렵습니다. AI 기술의 발전은 과거 원자력 기술이 세계에 퍼져나간 방식과 유사점이 많은데요. 원자력은 평화적 목적과 군사적 목적 모두에 사용될 수 있는 이중 용도 기술이고 인공지능도 마찬가지입니다. 원자력 기술이 보유국과 비보유국 사이에 기술 종속 관계를 만들었듯이 인공지능 기술도 선도국과 후발국 사이에 새로운 종속 구조를 만들고 있습니다. 그러나 국가 전체의 인공지능 역량을 통합적으로 관리하고 조정할 수 있다면 우리는 디지털 주권을 지켜내고 세계 인공지능 생태계에서 우리만의 독자적인 위치를 확보할 수 있을 것입니다. 마지막으로 규제의 범위에 대한 인식의 전환입니다. 인공지능 시대에 우리는 인류와 문명을 품고 규제의 시야를 확장하여 가치 지향적인 공간 창출의 목표를 수립해야 합니다. K.E.Y 플랫폼인 대한민국은 K.E.Y의 글로벌 비전을 실현하는 AI 공간이 되어야 합니다. 이는 기술적 우수성을 넘어 건전하고 포용적이며 배려적인 인공지능 생태계를 의미합니다. 우리의 인공지능 공간은 열린 공간으로서 국내의 이해관계자들이 자유롭게 참여할 수 있어야 하며 안전한 공간으로서 프라이버시 등 권익을 보장해야 합니다. 또한 K 컨텐츠의 성공 경험을 접목한 창의적인 공간, 인간과 인공지능이 조화롭게 공존하는 공간, 그리고 인공지능의 혜택이 사회 전체에 고르게 분배되는 공정한 공간이 되어야 합니다. 우리는 이미 K-팝, K-드라마, K-영화를 통해 문화적 개방성과 창의성을 전 세계에 증명했습니다. 이제 우리는 이러한 문화적 소프트 파워를 인공지능 분야로 확장하여 미국의 시장 주도형, 중국의 국가 통제형, 유럽의 규제 중심형과는 차별화된 한국만의 독특한 인공지능 공간 모델을 제시할 수 있습니다. 대한민국은 세계 10대 경제 대국입니다. 반도체, 스마트폰부터 K-팝, K-드라마까지 전 세계를 매료시켜 왔습니다. 이제 인공지능 시대를 맞아 또 한 번의 역사적 도약 기회가 우리 앞에 있습니다. 앞서 말씀드린 4가지 제도적 혁신을 통해 대한민국은 글로벌 AI 생태계에서 핵심적인 역할을 담당하는 K.E.Y 플랫폼 코리아로 발전할 수 있습니다. 이는 기술만이 아닌 제도와 문화, 가치가 융합된 공간으로 세계 인공지능 혁신의 교차로가 될 것입니다. K.E.Y 플랫폼 코리아는 단순한 구호가 아닌 인류가 인공지능과 함께 번영할 수 있는 새로운 공간을 창조하는 시대적 사명입니다. 우리가 지향하는 인공지능 규제의 생태계는 혁신을 억압하는 장벽이 아니라 혁신이 안전하고 책임감 있게 번영할 수 있는 비옥한 토양입니다. 자유와 혁신의 공간은 기술만으로 만들어지지 않습니다. 그것은 우리가 함께 설계하고 구축하는 건강한 규제 생태계를 통해 형성됩니다. 이제 우리는 기술 개발을 넘어 제도로 만드는 인공지능 강국을 향해 나아가야 합니다. 경청해 주셔서 감사합니다.
윤혜선 교수님 말씀을 들으니까 대한민국 AI 미래가 굉장히 밝은 것 같은데요. 한편으로는 좀 의문이 드는 점도 있고, 그래서 발표 내용에 대해서 잠깐 몇 가지 질문을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 지금 그 기술 경쟁력도 중요하지만 제도 경쟁력이 굉장히 중요하다고 강조를 하셨는데, 사실 그 2024년도 글로벌 AI 인덱스를 보면 대한민국이 83개국 중에서 6위 정도로 기술력이 뛰어난 거로는 되어 있지만, 점수를 놓고 보면 미국을 100점 만점으로 했을 때 한국의 기술 점수는 27점에 불과한 거로 되어 있습니다. 그러면 그러한 우리나라의 기술 수준 가지고 제도 경쟁력을 강화시키면 과연 대한민국이 K.E.Y 플랫폼이 될 수 있을까? 기술 경쟁력과 제도 경쟁력의 어떤 그 차별점이나 전략은 어떤 게 있으면 좋을까요?
네, 너무 핵심 질문을 해주셔서 감사합니다. 사실 어느 자료를 보느냐에 따라 좀 차이가 있는 것 같습니다만, 작년에 나온 자료는 우리나라가 한 6위 정도 하는 걸로 나와 있는데, 올해 나온 자료들은 한 4위 정도 되고요. 미국하고의 기술 경쟁력 차이는 한 80% 정도 된다. 이런 이제 보고를 제가 최근에 봤는데요. 사실 그 우리나라의 기술 경쟁력을 어떻게 보느냐에 따라 관점이 굉장히 다를 수 있는데, 일단 제가 말씀드리는 기술 경쟁력의 핵심은 우리나라가 얼마나 빠르게 발전하고 있느냐에 초점이 맞춰야 된다고 생각합니다. 인공지능이 미국이나 중국이 굉장히 앞서서 인공지능 기술, 그 다음에 여러 가지 파운데이션 모델을 다수를 만들고 있지만, 그거에 비추어서 우리나라는 그러면 파운데이션 모델이 있느냐 이렇게 얘기한다면 우리는 많이 부족하다고 느끼지만, 실제 그 한 해가 다르게 혹은 한 달이 다르게 대한민국이 발전하는 모습을 보면 이제 기술적 경쟁력이 있다라는 것은, 혹은 잠재력이 있다라는 것은 부인할 수 없다라고 보여지고요. 다만 이것을 더 촉진하기 위해서, 그러니까 여기 시너지를 만들기 위해서는 제도가 뒷받침돼야 된다라는 말씀을 이제 강조드리고 싶고요. 그 제도라는 것이 꼭 그 엄격한 규제가 아니라 혁신을 훨씬 더 자유롭게 안정감 있게 할 수 있는 제도, 정책을 뒷받침해줘야 된다, 만들어줘야 된다라는 취지가 오늘 제 발제의 핵심 내용입니다. 그러한 의미의 제도 경쟁력을 말씀드린 것입니다.
네. 그리고 발표하실 때 조금 의아한 용어가 나오는데요. 공간이라는 표현을 많이 하셨는데, 그게 왜 공간이라는 표현으로 그 AI 쪽을 얘기를 하고 있는 건가요?
제가 생각하기에 인공지능은 기술이지만, 기술을 봤을 때는 지금 기술이 발전하는 것은 약간 선이라는 느낌이 들었는데요. 그런데 이 선들이 이 선들을 가지고 다양한 곳에 접목시키면서, 우리 앞서서 그 대담회에서도 이야기가 나왔던 것처럼 스페이스가 만들어지고 있는 것 같습니다. 그래서 사실 우리가 그 규제를 만들고 또 정책을 만들고 제도를 만드는 이유, 그리고 다른 기술들과 다른 산업과의 접목을 시키는 큰 이유도 중에서도 인공지능을 그냥 개발만 하는 것이 아니라 잘 사용하고 그것을 통해서 새로운 가치와 문명을 만든다는 것인데요. 사실 그게 무엇일까 저는 생각해 보면 하나의 공간이 아닐까 하는 생각을 해봤습니다. 그러니까 어떻게 보면 유니버스가 될 수도 있고요. 근데 그게 제도의 관점에서 봤을 때는 대한민국이라는 공간이 되기도 하고 또 이렇게 대한민국이 AI 키 플랫폼이 된다고 하면 이 대한민국 자체가 허브가 돼서 여러 다른 국가의 다양한 참여자들이 또 들어올 수 있는 더 넓은 공간이 될 수 있다라고 생각을 해서 제가 제도라는 식상한 단어보단 공간이라는 어떻게 보면 figure of speech로 디스크립티브한 용어로 제안을 드렸습니다.
네. 프랑스에서 굉장히 귀한 분이 오셨는데요. 저희한테는 좀 생소한 국사원이라는 프랑스의 굉장히 중요한 싱크탱크 역할을 하는 공식 용어로는 국사위원회라고 써야 된다고 그러고 판사님이시기도 한 베델께 질문을 좀 드리면 프랑스가 미스트랄 AI라는 스타트업으로 굉장히 좋은 게 만들어졌는데 그 미스트랄에 대해서 그런 게 만들어진 배경은 어떤 배경 때문에 프랑스에 그렇게 좋은 스타트업이 나왔을까요?
Well, Mistral is a French leading company in AI. Basically, they are tech deep engineers. I heard that the word of AI space, but the technology is mathematics. It's projection of knowledge of data point into a vectorial space. And out of this space, then you put it output, and all the modern current stream of AI is based on it. So there are engineers. These people, most of them were trained in US companies, at top of the class US companies. I won't say the names, but everybody knows the names. Then after 5-6 years, they came back to France and wanted to start their own company. And it was totally in line with the vision of President Macron, who wanted also to have an open competition. We welcomed a lot of foreign company R&D centers in Paris. All the big players are there, including Korean players. We have Samsung R&D, we have Naval Labs in Grenoble. And these people, sometimes they come back, what we call a mafia investment system. And for us, it was the best chance to have, because they raised a lot of money with VC. We also, I will elaborate later, we also wanted to have a more important and productful VC ecosystem, and this works because now we can attract VC investors from abroad. 25% of our VC investment is from the US, 25% from Germany and the UK. We also have investments from Middle East and Asia. And so these people, since they are at the top of the class, they could create their own LLM model, competing somewhat with the best models.
네. 지금 작년에 유니콘이 만들어진 개수의 전체 50%가 제너레이티브 AI에서 나왔다라고 얘기를 하고 있고요. 글로벌의 탑 100에 들어가는 유니콘 기업의 21개가 생성형 AI로 되어 있는데 대부분 미국 기업이고요. 한국에는 그런 게 나오지는 않았는데 조금 전에 베델 선생님 말씀하신 대로 미스트랄이 프랑스에서 나왔고요. 잘 아시는 오픈 AI, 심지어는 최근에 사카나 AI라고 일본에서도 이런 게 나오게 됐는데 프랑스가 그러한 쟁쟁한 국가들 사이에 껴서 이러한 스타트업에서 생성형 AI에 대한 이런 생태계를 만들게 된 이런 국가적 전략이라든가 이런 개념은 어떤 것들이 있을까요?
Well, as I mentioned, AI is divided. It's a science, it's technology. So AI now fuels science in research mode. It's a tool, it's an assistant for scientists, and it's a technology, applied technology. We think that there's value because if you don't want to be dependent, of course, Europe, for instance, is very dependent on the semiconductor industry. Although we value that when they are competitors. And so it's important that you master realistically some of the hardcore technologies. France knows where it lies. It's a mid-sized economy, maybe like Korea, and Europe is a set of mid-sized and small economies. But together in Europe, we add up our strengths. I've heard of it that the EU would be a supranational socialist organization, but it is not. It's a market organization. And I think its strength lies in market competition authority. And by setting up these rules, you create a system for AI. And that in the French strategy, we are aligned with the European strategy. And what we want to do is also developing the uptake of AI, because the value of AI will not be solely created on the semiconductor industry or on the big foundation models. Because big foundation models, you know, competition is arising. That's the lesson from DeepSeek. By some very bright engineering tricks, you can devise your own models. But organizations that have a very strong and solid digitalized organization, intangible assets in data, organized data, they will be the ones who will be able to leverage most of the AI revolution. And then it changes the nature of the relationship between the individual and the collective, between one singular company and what we call the cooperative system, the co-opetition model, when sometimes in an industry, they are competitors, but they have to unite to set up some frameworks, some standards, if they want to compete globally. And that's what President Macron wanted to do in France and in Europe with other partners, to set up thriving ecosystems when you have sound and fair competition, and then the competition rules are also provided that for startups can grow, and they are not always taken by the incumbents.
네. 조금 전에 그 윤혜선 교수 발표 때 미국은 그 민간 주도형 그 전략 체계를 갖고 있고 중국은 국가 주도형으로 했다 그러면 유럽은 규제라든가 제도를 잘 만들어서 경쟁력을 키우고 있다 그러는데 지금 EU의 전체적인 전략과 프랑스는 거기서 어떤 역할을 하고 계신지 좀 설명 좀 부탁드리겠습니다.
First? No. In France, we abide by European law. So European law negotiation is very sometimes a long, lengthy process, but it has some advantages. In Europe, no single one person can influence the regulations. Neither President Macron, nor Chancellor Merz, nor President von der Leyen. In Europe, if you want to establish a regulation, then you need to build up a cooperation over some many years. So it provides stability, visibility, multi-year visibility. So sometimes it's long, sometimes it's not adaptive enough. And I recall that the president of the ceremony insisted, and I totally agree, on agility. So you have to be careful with the AI, which is a technology that evolves very fast. And the AI Act, when it was devised, it was the era of supervised AI. Then came the big foundation models at the end of the negotiation process. So we rushed, to my opinion, a bit too hastily into doing something. But then came retrieval augmented generation and now agentic systems. So we really need to have institutions, and the public sector is not always very bright at being agile, but we really have to now change our way of legislating by mingling legal people like I am and tech people. Otherwise, we will miss the point. But that's the kind of thing that President Macron wanted to do. And also then, we have to leave, the regulation has to be low. The regulation has to be minimal and leave many of the organization things to the private sector. Because this is the private sector that can build up platforms that then you can train and use your data. And also we have seen this evolving thing that in the past, French entrepreneurs, they had to leave to the US because only in the US you could develop a global company. And in fact, in the US, you have many very beautiful firms that have been co-created or co-founded by French entrepreneurs. What we have seen in the past 10 years, and Mr. Macron was our economy minister before he was president, is that more and more, by being open, by accepting that the English language is spoken in Paris, we can attract more bright people. And now we have seen that we have Franco-American companies, like, for instance, Hugging Face has been founded by French co-founders, but it's located in New York. But it's good because R&D team has half in France, half in New York, and they are now the leading platform for co-hosting foundation models and LLMs. We've also seen Ofkin, for instance, it's a health AI company. It's a reverse trend. And now, thanks to this phenomenon, we have seen VC investors from abroad coming back to France or Germany. And sometimes it was not very easy because politicians said, they are going to steal our best bright students, and then our big companies, they say, they are because they are offering good salaries, the best talents they are leaving. But but it's a short-term reasoning. If you really create a competitive ecosystem, then people they will prefer to stay where they have been grown up, and then they will meet people, and then they will give their knowledge. So that's why, by little, we built up a European ecosystem, working with Germany, with Poland, with the UK. It's not in the EU any longer, but we still have close connections.
그렇다면은 그 EU의 AI 전략을 보면 굉장히 그 특이한 용어가 나오는데요. 인간 중심으로 간다든가 아니면 신뢰할 수 있는 AI를 만들겠다 그런데 그 부분을 조금 구체적으로 설명 좀 부탁드릴까요?
I can understand that sometimes this word can make people be afraid because it's a bit loose political, vague determinations. But what we mean by that is two things. In AI, when you want to transport AI into some sectors, you have a change of technology. Because of the statistical nature of AI, it's not aligning with classical engineering. And what we mean by human-centered, when you deal with transportation system, when you deal with health system, you have to have very strict safety and security mechanism, and like that, human-centered means that you have to find the acceptable risk boundaries. This is very technical, sometimes boring, but it is very important. You don't want a transportation system that is going to fail and have massive accidents, and same with health data. And on the second way, that's Annex 1 of the AI Act. All these domains are listed there. And then you have also everyday life uptake of AI. Some are very low risk, like the recommendation system that will give you the film for tonight or your feed on the social network. This is not very important. If there's a mistake, it doesn't really matter. But in some of everyday lives, statistical AI can assign you to a category. And some of these categories may not be socially desirable because they can be discriminatory in education, in employment, in access to justice, in law enforcement. And in these cases, you need to have test-proved life cycle monitoring of AI systems. That's what the AI Act is about. It's I liked when I visited the National Assembly of Korea, the name of your law, you mentioned it, framework. And the AI Act, to my opinion, is misleadingly labeled. It's a framework where individual sectors can elaborate their own standards, and if these standards are recognized, then by default, it will be considered as AI abiding. It's a high-level regulation, and to my opinion, the biggest thing is that we should not enact, overrule, overstate what is in the AI Act. And sometimes, institution regulators, they want to capture power also. That is going to be, to me, I think, the most important thing in the 5 coming years.
윤 교수님께 좀 여쭤보겠는데요. 우리나라가 제도나 규제 얘기할 때마다 나오는 거는 지금 포지티브 규제이기 때문에 굉장히 커다란 문제가 있어 2중, 3중 규제가 되고 있다. 이렇게 해서 네거티브 규제로 전환을 해야 된다라고 말은 하는데 이게 쉽진 않은 상태로 돼 있어서 지금 아까 연성법으로 가야 된다 그러면 이런 네거티브 규제로 전환을 하지 않고도 갈 수 있는 방법이 좀 있을까요?
일단 포지티브 규제만으로 우리나라 규제가 되어 있지는 않고요. 그러니까 영역별로 우리 전반 일반적인 방식은 포지티브 규제가 맞습니다만 이제 어떤 영역이냐에 따라 이제 다양한 규제를 사용을 하고 있습니다. 근데 인공지능의 경우에는 사실 현재 규제가 물론 이제 인공지능 기본법이 만들어졌기 때문에 좀 1년 후에는 좀 다른 이야기가 될 수 있습니다만 뭐 데이터 규제를 제외하고는 사실상은 규제가 없는 네거티브 규제인 상태인, 네거티브 규제 공백인 상태인 것이죠. 근데 그래서 여기서 우리가 이걸 그대로 가져가겠다라고 하면 이제 엄밀히 말하면 암묵적으로 네거티브 규제 상태가 되는 거긴 한데요. 규제를 연구하는 사람의 입장에서 포지티브 규제와 네거티브 규제가 다른 거냐, 그럼 다른 결과를 가져올 것이냐, 우리가 관념적으로 그냥 일견 생각하는 것처럼 포지티브 규제는 혁신을 좀 억압하고 네거티브 규제는 자유롭게 하게 할 것이다 이렇게 생각하지만 그렇지 않습니다. 그런데 다만 이제 저는 그래서 오히려 그 엄격한 규제, 우리 EU에서 보는 것처럼 EU 우리 저 베델 의원님께서 말씀하신 것처럼 상정하고 있는 인공지능의 기술 수준, 기술의 유형이 사실 지금 나오고 있는 기술하고는 전혀 차이가 있었던 걸 대상으로 해서 법을 이제 만들었는데요. 이제 그럼으로 인해 여러 가지 지금 논란이 야기되고 있는데, 그런 엄격한 법을 만들기 전에 인공지능 기본법과 같은 프레임워크 정도의 법을 제시하거나 아니면 그렇지 않다면 우리가 합의할 수 있는 원칙들에 기반을 해서 각 섹터에서 자유롭게 그 원칙을 구현할 수 있도록 하는 그런 의미의 이제 연성법적인 접근이 네거티브 규제와 함께 필요한 게 아닌가 하는 생각이 듭니다. 그래서 사실 규제가 없다는 것 자체가 기업의 안정성을 절대 담보하지 않습니다. 왜냐하면 다른 법들이 이미 존재하고 있기 때문에 그 법을 위반하게 되면 어떠한 책임을 져야 되는지가 불명확한 상황은 사실 기업이나 산업에도 절대 이게 좋은 것이 아니기 때문에 일정한 수준의 예측 가능성과 법적 안정성을 제공하기 위해서는 포지티브 규제로 가기는 좀 어렵다 하더라도 연성적인 규제를 통해서 나름의 이제 우리 시장의 법적 안정성과 예측 가능성을 제공해 주는 것이 저는 필요하다고 생각합니다.
네. 지금 저희가 AI라고 쉽게 얘기하지만 그 밸류 체인 상에서 보면은 굉장히 AI의 영역이 넓어서요. 하드웨어부터 시작해서 뭐 GPU나 하드웨어나 클라우드도 있고 LLM 같은 모델도 존재하고요. 그다음에 머신러닝에 관련된 그 학습에 관련된 부분도 있고, 최근 들어서 이제 어플리케이션도 많이 만들어지고 서비스 영역까지 보통 보면은 밸류 체인 상에서 커다랗게 그 6개 큰 흐름을 놓고 보는데, 지금 말씀하시는 규제나 제도에 관련된 부분은 어느 쪽에 좀 집중이 되고 어느 부분을 더 연구를 많이 해야 될까라고 생각이 좀 되는데.
네, 일단 사실은 모든 영역의 연구는 해야 된다고 저는 생각을 합니다. 그리고 오늘 제 발제에서 강연에서 강조하고 싶었던 건 뭐냐면, 종래에는 이렇게 말씀하신 그 인공지능 관련된 밸류 차인이 6개의 섹터로 나눠진다고 하면 각 섹터별로 혹은 그 섹터 안의 기술별로 규제가 만들어졌는데요. 이런 접근은 제가 보기에는 효율적이지도 못하고, 또 우리가 지금 이야기하고 있는 다양한 규제의 부작용만 양산할 수밖에 없기 때문에 오히려 말씀하신 대로 이 다양한 인공지능을 둘러싼 글로벌 공급망 혹은 밸류 체인을 조망을 하고 어떠한 규제들이 어느 정도에 필요한 규제, 어떠한 규제들을 어떻게 어느 분야에 언제 넣을 것인가에 대해서 조금 더 면밀한 검토와 연구와 또 논의가 좀 필요한 것 같습니다. 그래서 그런 의미에서의 제가 시스템적 규제를 말씀을 드린 거고요. 그래서 예컨대 하드웨어에서 많은 규제가 들어간다라고 하면 예컨대 뭐 소프트웨어는 좀 더 규제가 완화될 수도 있고 아니면 규제가 필요하지 않을 수도 있고요. 아니면 뭐 파운데이션 모델 단위에서 규제가 들어간다라고 하면 시스템 단위에서 특히 위험성이 적은 경우에는 규제를 안 할 수도 있고, 이렇게 좀 이렇게 유기적으로 그러니까 시스템적인 통합적인 규제를 이제 만드는 방법론을 우리가 또 개발하고, 또 그런 접근에 좀 접근을 하는데 관심을 또 기울이고 역량을 좀 키워야 될 것 같습니다.
네. 그 베델 위원님께 여쭤보면, 그 지금 조금 전에 말씀드린 대로 그 AI의 전체 밸류 체인 중에서 프랑스가 조금 집중적으로 집중하는 분야나 어떤 분야가 있다 그러면 왜 그런 그 분야에 집중하는지, 그런 경우는 어떤 전략을 쓰시는 건지 그에 대해서 좀 말씀 좀 부탁드리겠습니다.
Yes, we have, because we have discussed with our industry, and our industry is not totally the same as Germany's or other European countries. And in our industry, we have like some big companies worldwide, but in certain areas like aeronautic industry, transport industry, CMA, CGM. We have some also waste management industries. And so they told us that their interest was not necessarily into consumer electronics or consumer platforms AI. It would be more into embedded AI and trustworthy AI in very limited domains of application. So it means that we have to develop a more independent, smaller models AI with frugal AI in terms of energy, because when you have embedded AI, you don't have easy access to energy. And also, in Europe, we believe that climate change is arriving and that we have to prepare for it. And that we will need, because the energy problem will only be facing up in the world. So we need to prepare. So yes, so that's where we invested. So we are a small mid-sized economy, so we could not invest everywhere, and we tried to make differentiation and niche investments in that kind of area, without, of course, saying that the main core of AI, current LLMs, is not important. Hence the support to Mistral, and hence the development of also big HPC, high computing centers, because sometimes you have the private market, and we also are happy in France. We have a very small cloud economy, but we try to defend it in Europe, because we think that the cloud economy is so important, because it also is a question of national sovereignty and security. You cannot have all your data being computed and stored abroad. You need to have a European with our own laws in terms of consumer protection, because I insist the EU is also a big market for consumer protection and for private citizens protection. And we give everybody, all world competitors, the chance to have access to our labels, really, freely. And for instance, when we went to two cloud providers, all the three main cloud providers, two accepted and one refused. It's fine. But the two that we accepted, they are building now cloud cooperation companies, joint ventures, for instance, Microsoft and Google with French companies. And for a limited, very limited amount of data, they will be able to have access to the label. And so for very private sensitive data or public sensitive data, they will be able to manage it. So they will have access to the best of the American technology, but with another layer of protection, because we know in which world we know. In fact, in my career, I was not trained by law. I was a civil servant in the Ministry of Interior, and thanks to the Snowden case, my main achievement in terms of, as a civil servant, was drafting the French intelligence law. So I know a bit of the sector. So that's the kind of thing that priorities that we try to target.
그러면 지금 그 EU하고 프랑스에서 소버린 AI 쪽은 어느 정도란 생각을 하고 계시고, 진행된 거는 그 어느 정도 진행이 되고 있다고 보시나요?
To be honest, there's no real such thing as sovereign AI. I mean, the technology is worldwide. I've seen that we might be in a third way. I don't really believe in that. I think the technology is global and the best technology will win. What I think, on the contrary, is that AI is not only a question of technology. It's a question also of data, of knowledge representation. And there, it is very important, and I've heard that sovereign states is important, even in Europe. And then, in that space, you need to have space for regional accommodation, for national sovereign, a bit of twisting. Not everybody has the same free speech rules. Not everybody has the same exact political systems. And even in Europe, we have differences with Germany, with Poland, with Spain, with Greece. And that's perfectly understandable. And the EU framework makes there a place where we have constant negotiations and where we align our national interests. For instance, when the EU signs a free trade contract, because we still believe in free trade, with South America, in France we are not happy because it's not in the interest of our French farmers, but we have to abide because it's European law. And then we yield, but in another sector we will not yield and we will make our view prevail. That's how the system works, constant negotiations. And I think it is the best system to align interests and to avoid tensions to be too much, too big.
그러면 윤 교수님께 여쭤보면, 우리나라는 지금 소버린 AI가 굉장히 이슈고 굉장히 빨리 시급이 필요하고 자금도 많이 투여가 돼야 된다고 그러는데 그 부분은 어떻게 생각을 하시나요?
저도 개인적으로 우리나라가 우리만의 이제 인공지능 기술력을 확보해야 된다라고 생각합니다. 물론 이제 소버린 AI를 이제 어떻게 보느냐의 관점에 따라 차이가 있겠지만 저는 적어도 우리나라는 지정학적인 혹은 이제 국가 안보적인 차원에서 다른 나라의 인공지능 기술에 의존하지 않고 적어도 그 영역에서는 우리만의 기술로 좀 우리를 방어할 수 있는 역량을 좀 키워야 된다고 생각을 하고요. 또 공공의 영역에서는 지금 뭐 유럽이나 뭐 일본이나 다른 나라들이 글로벌 빅텍과 협업하는 이제 모델을 제시하고는 있는데 우리나라도 그렇게 갈 수 있을지 아닐지에 대해서는 좀 고민이 필요한 측면입니다. 그래서 우리만의 인공지능 기술을 통해서 공공 부문을 끌고 갈지 지탱할지 아니면 일정 부분 이제 글로벌 빅텍과 협업을 할지는 좀 고민이 많이 필요한 시기라고 생각을 하는데요. 그러나 민간이나 상업적인 영역에서는 저는 굳이 그 영역에까지 소버린 AI를 주장해야 되는가에 대해서는 좀 다른 생각을 가지고 있고요. 민간은 충분히 그거는 이제 개인의 선택의 선택권이고 국가는 뭐 모니터링과 일종의 뭐 여러 가지 제도를 통해서 혹시 문제가 생겼을 때 피해가 발생할 때 충분히 보상과 책임이 이루어질 수 있도록 하면 될 것 같습니다. 그래서 소버린 AI는 제가 보기에는 중요한 정책이기는 하지만 굉장히 섬세하고 정교하게 접근되어야 되는 것이라고 보여지고 우리나라에서는 적어도 국방이나 안보 측면에서는 필요한 것이 아닌가라는 생각을 하고 있습니다.
네, 베델 위원님께 여쭤보겠습니다. 제가 툴루즈를 여러 번 갔었는데 굉장히 감명이 깊었고요. 지금 말씀하신 대로 프랑스가 유럽에서 최고의 AI 강국으로 올랐을 때는 뚜렷한 전략이 있는 것 같고 아까 특정 분야를 선택과 집중을 잘 하시는 것 같은데요. 그래서 그러한 기업들을 선별하고 지원을 해줄 때 자금 소스는 어떤 방식으로 국가가 어느 정도를 민간에 지원을 하고 있는지하고 이 AI에 굉장히 중요한 거는 인력인데 인력 양성을 위한 어떤 전략이 있다면 어떤 게 있을까요?
Over 10 years, we have developed or changed or transformed our public investment bank. It used to be something that investors didn't like and because it was too bureaucratic and not wise. What we have done is that we have concentrated all our investment plans with this operator. So all the money the state goes to the private sector, it goes to this operator. So the states and the ministry I served, we define the priorities, the amounts, but then the individual choices are not politically motivated. They are made by independent panels. And we have seen that within 10 years, this once a bit sided institution has become a cornerstone investors. It always invests in the small amounts as a minimal investor, like 5-10%, but it is a signal that it is a good case, that is a serious investment, and usually it helps building up a team of VCs, but they never lead the VC round. And what we have done is that we have to try to fill the gaps in our VC ecosystem. In the past, it was very difficult, and we know that the banking system is not adapted to finance deep tech and tech companies. So now VC ecosystem is growing up. We're not yet there. We also need to solidify the European-wide VC ecosystem, but we have seen that we have increased the level of rounds. Now investors they can yield or level or attract like a few billions of euros, a few millions of euros, sorry, investment rounds, like 100, 200, 300. What we need now is the later stage, when we have much more big investments. In that case, we need still public national investment, but we think we could do more. To us, that's the lesson. AI will not be invented by administration. Administration should concentrate on being a good buyer, a strategic buyer, and then a soft touch regulator. And this is tricky because sometimes we lack the knowledge and the geek scientists in administration.
조금 전에 여쭤봤었는데 그 인재 양성을 위해서 쓰고 있는 프로그램이나 이런 전략이 있다면 어떤 게 있을까요?
Yes, for talent fostering, what we have in France is some good points and some less good points. Our good points is that we have a school of mathematics, physics, and cryptology, and we have good engineering schools. But our universities are not well equipped to be worldwide contestants. So what we have done in the past 15 years is to make teams of an engineering school, a business school, and all university classical departments, because that's how, when people do sports, have party together, that you can, that's teams build entrepreneurial team setup. Also, we induced a lot of more entrepreneurial spirit into science. Now, a scientist, that was a reform enacted by President Macron, now a scientist in France, public research, can spend 50% of his time in a private company. Before, it was not allowed. More and more, we give tools and training to researchers so that after their PhD and the very top of the top-notch research, they can go and found a company or find partners if they don't want to be a businessman and concentrate on to be a tech person. That's how we developed entrepreneurship, and we have seen that our patenting rate was quite low, and now it's slowly increasing. It's not yet at the best, but we think it's improving.
그리고 EU 같은 경우에는 데이터에 관련된 법을 굉장히 일찍 잘 만들어서 잘 정리가 돼 있고, 뭐 GDPR 같은 데서 이런 걸 매니지를 잘하고 계신 걸로 알고 있는데요. 지금 그 AI를 쓰기 위해서는 데이터에 대한 활용도가 굉장히 중요한데, 이게 기존에 있었던 규제와 혁신에 대한 어떤 밸런스를 맞추기 위한 어떤 전략이나 어떤 그 개선점 같은 게 좀 있을까요?
It is a bit funny because internally, because sometimes here I am defending the EU model and explaining the AI Act to the audience, but sometimes in France or in Europe I am more the critic person against the AI Act or the GDPR, because I was in the negotiating teams, and as you may know, France and President Macron had made some reservations about the final stage. Not everything. There are very good things in the AI Act. And I think that that's one area where you need to speed up and boost the legal people, to which I belong. GDPR, to my opinion, is not yet fully adapted to the AI era, because you know, when you use data in AI, you have different stages. You have the training stages, you have the post-training stages, you have your internal company, finalization, optimization, and then you have the full, the inference stage. And all these stages do not weigh the same risk on the risk of the usage of AI, both for proprietary or intellectual property law, and both for data privacy. And I think the GDPR, with respect to data privacy, it has to improve on that, to recognize that there is a need for training AI systems, and sometimes it's very difficult to keep up. You need some private data. You cannot, if you are honest, you need private data to develop health tech in AI. You need private data to develop AI in education. And if you don't relax the rules somewhat, then you will have and you will face big problems. You will lose the economic competition. That's some area where I would like to see some evolution in Europe. That's why I'm glad that President von der Leyen 2 weeks ago announced that there would be a Data and Cloud Act proposed by the end of the year. And I hope that this work, which has not been done in the AI Act because GDPR was too fresh, too recent, maybe it will be done. And I hope that also by discussing with other aligned partners like Korea, like Japan, like India, like Brazil, and also, of course, with the United States. When I was Chief of Staff of the Minister for Digital, I used to receive US companies every week in my office. And sometimes I realize that they have right also because they are the front runners of technology, and they tell us, please don't make 27 standards. We need things. So I said, okay, I totally agree with that. We need to have a clear standard, unified, so we have to convene in Europe and give you, and not only in Europe, but with other countries. But on the same time, they never came to me to discuss about advertising things or monopoly things. At the same time, I will always tell them, you also have to give some leverage, some space, so that there is local twisting, and that you are aware that we will enforce strict competition and fair competition. That's the deal I think we have to strike with the US. We need their technology. They are our co-allies. They guarantee somewhat our freedom. There is the rules of politics, and we respect that. We need to respect any country's sovereign differentiation. Sometimes we wish some more gradual evolution, but fair speech and clear speech is fine, but we need that's to my opinion the main challenges we have to face in the few years to come.
윤 교수님께 여쭤보겠습니다. 아까 성과 중심의 규제나 이런 말씀을 하셨는데 밸류체인 상에서 우리나라가 지금 커다란 6개 분야에서 놓고 봐서 실제로 글로벌 AI의 경쟁력을 갖기 위한 분야는 모델을 한다든가 이런 거는 거의 불가능해 보이고 어플리케이션이나 서비스 분야가 좀 가능성이 있어 보이는데 그런 분야에서는 어떤 규제나 어떤 전략을 쓰는 게 좋다고 좀 보시는지요?
일단 저는 사실 우리나라의 강점이자 단점이라고 생각하는 게 우리나라는 다 하자 이게 이제 정체인 것 같습니다. 그래서 워낙 정부 부처에 계신 분들이 훌륭하신 분들이 많이 탁월하신 분들이 많이 가셨기 때문에 정책이나 전략을 굉장히 잘 수립을 하시고 또 이제 국가적인 지원이 가능하기 때문에 사실 모든 영역에서 굉장히 빠르게 기술을 도입해 가고 있는 것 같습니다. 그런 측면에서는 그러한 측면에서 사실 우리나라가 굉장히 큰 경쟁력과 잠재력이 있다고 볼 수 있는데 인공지능 시대에는 조금 전략을 바꿔서 잘하는 것부터 먼저 하는 것이 좋지 않을까라는 게 이제 저의 생각입니다. 그래서 일단 이미 이제 기술 격차가 워낙 크고 기술에 기반한 어플리케이션들이 저희가 생각하지 못하는 수준으로 빠르게 나오고 있고 지금은 벌써 로봇의 시대로 이야기를 하고 있는데요. 이런 가운데 우리가 정말 경쟁력을 갖고 나아갈 수 있는 건 잘하는 것 더 잘하는 것밖에 없지 않을까라는 게 이제 기본적인 저의 전략과 생각이고요. 그러면 이제 우리나라가 잘하는 게 뭐가 있을까 하는데 생각보다 많습니다. 우리나라가 잘하는 게 우리나라 의료도 잘하고요. 교육도 나름 잘하고요. 원자력도 제가 보기엔 잘하는 것 같고 제조 분야도 뛰어난 편이고요. 컨텐츠도 잘합니다. 그래서 이런 영역들에 좀 집중적으로 정책적인 그리고 제도적인 지원을 좀 해주신다면 규제 풀 것도 풀고 완화할 것도 완화하고 하고 무엇보다 이제 출구 전략을 좀 잘 만들어주는 정책을 만든다고 하면 지금 사실은 제가 보기에는 기술과 하드웨어 중심으로 좀 경쟁이 이루어지고 있지 이걸 잘 사용하는 것에 어떠한 예컨대 앱을 만든거나 어떤 소프트웨어를 만들거나 이런 형태로 이걸 어떻게 잘 사용할 것이냐의 문제는 지금 제가 보기에 이제 경쟁이 시작됐다라고 보여지고요. 그러니까 예를 들면 우리나라가 인터넷을 개발하진 않았지만 우리나라 인터넷 강국이지 않습니까? 우리나라 인공지능의 최고 수준의 인공지능 기술을 갖고 있지는 않지만 우리가 인터넷을 그렇게 잘 활용해서 IT 강국이 된 것처럼 인공지능 컨텐츠를 통한 인공지능 강국이 될 수 있지 않을까라는 게 제 생각이고 그걸 잘 할 수 있도록 정부가 적극적인 지원을 해주시는 것이 필요하지 않을까 생각해 봅니다.
네, 그런 차원에서 윤 교수님 아까 발표하실 때 국가 차원의 띵크탱크가 필요하다 이렇게 말씀을 해주셨는데 한편으로는 우리나라는 조직 만드는 건 굉장히 잘하고요. 위원회, 공화국 이럴 정도로 굉장히 많은데 실제로 작동되는 건 많지 않은 이런 그런 차원에서 또 만들게 되면 약간 옥상옥이 되고 이게 좀 그럼 어떤 차원의 싱크탱크가 만들어지면 좋겠다라고 생각하시는지 하고 지금 국가 출연 연구기관이라든가 국가에서 얘기하는 띵크탱크가 많은데 그들하고는 어떤 차별화 전략을 갖고 가야 될까요?
네, 일단 지금 사실 우리나라에 말씀하신 대로 거버넌스 조직도 많이 있고 또 정보를 다룰 수 있는 조직들도 있고 그다음에 국책연구원들도 굉장히 많고요. 국책연구원에 정말 뛰어난 역량을 가지고 연구 능력을 가지고 계신 분들이 많이 계시는 건 맞는 것 같습니다. 그런데 지금까지는 우리나라의 특징은 부처별로 부처의 전략과 정책과 제도의 이행을 지원하는 형태의 이제 싱크탱크가 운영이 됐는데요. 인공지능 시대에도 과연 이러한 프레임워크를 벗어날 수 있을까 하는 고민이 살짝 되기는 하지만 그럼에도 불구하고 아까 제 발표 중에 인공지능의 핵심은 인공지능을 우리가 두려워하고 또 규제를 만들고자 하는 이런 욕구는 어디서 나오냐면 인공지능의 불확실성 때문에 나온다고 말씀을 드렸는데요. 더더군다나 인공지능은 범용 기술이고 모든 영역에 접목이 될 수밖에 없고 앞으로는 제가 보기에는 우리 통신 서비스처럼 인공지능 기술이 이제 사회적 인프라가 될 것이라고 보여지는데 그렇다고 한다면 이 인공지능을 제대로 다루는 이제 기관이 필요하지 않을까. 정보기관이 필요하지 않을까, 전문성을 갖춘 기관이 필요하지 않을까 생각을 합니다. 그래서 단순히 정책을 지원하는 특정 부처의 혹은 특정 위원회의 정책을 지원하는 것이 아니라 정말 예를 들면 우리가 우리 foresight intelligence라는 표현도 쓰기도 하고 horizontal scanning, horizon scanning이라는 표현도 사용하는데 이런 미래를 예측하고 리스크를 능동적으로 관리할 수 있는 정보와 지식과 전문성을 축적할 수 있는 띵크탱크. 그래서 단순히 경제학자가 있거나 아니면 단순히 기술의 전문가나 기술 경영 전문가가 있는 게 아니라 법학자, 사회학자, 인문학자 다양한 영역의 다학제적인 연구가 이제 이루어질 수 있는, 그래서 우리나라가 좀 더 선제적으로 인공지능에 관련된 리스크도 관리하고 정책도 관리하고 발전 전략도 내놓을 수 있는 이러한 형태의 이제 저는 국가 차원의 연구소가 필요하다고 보고요. 여기서는 단순히 연구만 하는 것이 아니라 사실 국제적인 어떻게 보면은 그 글로벌 정책 논의의 허브가 될 수도 있고요. 아니면 다양한 이해관계자가 참여할 수 있는 플랫폼의 기능도 할 수 있는 그런 다양한 기능을 할 수 있는 새로운 형태의 띵크탱크를 우리가 좀 만들어야 되지 않을까 생각을 하는데, 물론 그렇다고 해서 새로운 조직을 만들 수도 있지만 기존에 있는 조직들을 잘 활용하는 방법도 있을 것 같습니다. 이 부분에 대해서는 저보다 정부가 더 열심히 고민해 주셨으면 합니다.
너무 좀 이상적인
네, 그런 평가도 많이 받고 있습니다. 너무 정부의 생리와 구조를 잘 이해하지 못하는 것 같다라는 말씀을 하시는데요. 일단 이상론을 펼쳐야 조금이라도 그 이상에 가까운 스텝이 생기지 않을까라고 해서 조금 큰 그림을 그려봤습니다.
베델 위원님께 여쭤보겠는데요. 지금 프랑스가 상대적으로 미국이나 중국에 이어서 굉장히 잘하고 계신데, 만약에 한국하고 어떤 협력을 한다 그러면은 우리나라 한국의 강점하고 프랑스의 어떤 강점이 합쳐지면 좋은 결과가 나올 거라고 생각하시나요?
Well, there's the obvious question of hardware, sovereign hardware, and inference, accelerating accelerators for AI. And in that respect, Korea is there are only 3 centers of power, and Europe is lacking behind. So this is an obvious way where we should cooperate more between France and more generally Europe and South Korea and Japan and Taiwan and the US, of course. The second thing is we are in a similar position. We have a strong cultural identity. We have a middle-sized economy, so our population is just less than 1% of the world population. So we have to be realistic. We cannot be dominant players in AI. But again, as I mentioned earlier, AI will not be only the core, the basic technology. Lots of its value will be in how you apply it, how you leverage it. And then it comes to your own strengths and weaknesses, how you organize your own public services, how your public services contribute with data to the common good. And it's not loose words. For instance, we realized with the internet economy, 10 to 15% of the address system was not adequate by being treated digitally. So how do you build digital twins if your address systems or your geolocalization systems is not perfect? This is the kind of investment that only the public services can do. And for instance, in Europe, we have a directive which was Inspired Directive. It's a beautiful name, but it's just a basic list of digital data that should be harmonized between Europe. And this is how you create a good, strong base for a company then to make the digital and software layers. So I think this kind of standards, and I think OECD is probably the best organization where we can cooperate in AI because it has a long history, it's respected, and it's also headquartered in Paris.
네, 한국도 지금 AI 기본법을 만들고 본격적으로 시동을 걸려고 하는데 베델 위원님께 여쭤보겠습니다. 좀 앞서간 국가로서 우리나라 한국 정부나 민간 기업들에게 어드바이스를 해주신다 그러면 어떤 내용이 좀 좋을까요?
I'm not so sure we are ahead because the AI Act has been negotiated and enacted before, but it will come into effect for high-risk AI only at mid-2026, and for transportation system in mid-2027. We wanted to provide this visibility for firms and private sector. So I think we will come into effect at the same time. So what I want to keep from my trip to South Korea is to compare all the time the two legislations and see what you have decided differently and learn also from your own experience. And I think we should make this experience because my fear is that there would be too rigid enactment of the AI Act and too slow adaptation of the GDPR to the AI systems. And I think by sampling out what you have done in Korea, we can prove that we have to evolve ourselves.
네, 감사합니다. 자, 1분 정도 남았는데 윤 교수님 그 마지막으로 코멘트 해주실 거 있으면 간단하게 코멘트 부탁드리겠습니다.
네, 아마 인공지능 시대에 우리는 어떻게 해야 되는가에 대한 국가적 고민이 많은 시기인 것 같습니다. 네, 오늘 아침에 이 자리에 오면서 저는 어떻게 생각하고 있나? 저는 그러니까 규제와 제도를 이제 이런 형태로 생각을 전달을 드렸지만 정말 저는 우리나라가 과연 AI 강국이 될 수 있다라는 걸 믿으면서 이런 말씀을 드렸을까 다시 한번 좀 짚어봤는데요. 아까 우리 그 좌장님께서 질문을 주셨을 때 답변을 드린 것처럼 생각해 보면 우리나라가 많은 기술 영역에서 1등, 전 세계 1등은 아니었음에도 불구하고 정말 1등이 되어가고 있는 영역들이 점점 더 많아지고 있는 것 같습니다. 그래서 지금 당장 뭐 오픈 AI처럼 못해도 미스트랄 같은 기업이 없다 하더라도 조금 더 시간이 지나면 우리가 ICT 강국이 된 것처럼 인공지능 강국이 되지 않을까 이런 생각이 있고, 근데 그 모든 우리가 ICT 강국이 된 데에는 사실은 뭐 정부만의 그 노력도 아니고 민간만의 노력도 아니고 우리 국가 전체가 역량을 집결한 것 같습니다. 그래서 인공지능의 경우에도 사실 인류의 문명이 바뀌는 키라고 이야기를 하고 키가 되는 기술이라고 얘기하는데 우리 국민 전부 모든 분들께서 관심과 역량을 기울여서 정말 우리나라가 다시 한번 인공지능 강국으로 도약할 수 있는 그러한 염원과 노력을 기울여 주시면 감사할 것 같습니다. 감사합니다.
네. 그리고 오후에는 그 베델 위원님의 그 굉장히 재미있고 잘 짜여진 강의가 준비가 돼 있으니까 식사하시고 강의를 꼭 들으시면 좋겠고요. 마지막으로 베델 위원님 코멘트 부탁드립니다.
Well, thank you very much for hosting me. I've realized how much Korean society is a technology advanced society, and how it will be seizing AI. Maybe a last comment. We are in the same position in Europe and Northern America, where the distrust of AI is the highest. Whereas in all Asian societies, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean society, it's more open to the future. That worries me. And it may also have something that both America, France, and Germany, they don't have yet established digital training from high school as a basic teaching course. And I think this is where we lag both America, France, and Germany behind. This is a reform I promote strongly in my own country. And I think I would want to learn also from how is digital education made in Korea.
네, 감사합니다. 하여튼 한국이 AI 강국이 되기를 프랑스랑 잘 협력해서 좋은 결과가 나왔으면 좋겠습니다. 감사합니다.
감사합니다.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Sorry.
고생하셨습니다.
I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the speakers today. Their contributions have offered us a richer understanding of the shifts unfolding in the wake of President Trump's second term and the accelerating influence of artificial intelligence. This year's theme of legacy cracking captures the moment very, very well. We are undoubtedly in a period of profound change. Yet, the reflections we've heard today remind us that such disruption does not always signal crisis. On the contrary, it often marks the beginning of new possibilities. In every shift, there is someone who will spot an opening, respond with clarity, and emerge as a leader for the times ahead. Korea is a nation with immense potential, and I believe there's great scope to explore fresh avenues for cooperation with Europe. Once I return home after the K.E.Y platform, I'll be taking time to reflect on these ideas and explore where they might lead. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings our first plenary session of the K.E.Y platform 2025 to a close. Some describe this moment as one of complexity and uncertainty, but perhaps it's more accurate to say it is as the start of deeper, more transformative change. And in such times, it becomes all the more important to pause, think carefully, and seek out insights that are both precise and far-reaching. In other words, to lay the quiet groundwork for reinvention, not only of systems and policies, but of the questions we ask and the future we dare to imagine. The K.E.Y platform offers a wealth of opportunity for those kinds of thinking. After lunch, the special session on science, technology, and AI will shed light on strategic responses essential for the Republic of Korea. There will be a variety of sessions available depending on your area of interest. And tomorrow, our second plenary will focus on bioindustry and the fresh opportunities it presents for Korea in this era shaped by AI, alongside a special session on the innovation ecosystem. We hope the next 2 days will offer both knowledge and inspiration in equal measures. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and Hamsa Hamnida.